Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another Thursday night of the Sports Crib. Oh man, a lot to talk about tonight. Things happening almost just before we go on the air. I mean, wow, it's like, hey, a lot of things happening. I see Bill and Demetrius waiting back there in queue. I'm going to get started here. Bill, how you doing?
As you know,
So,
George Shotgun Shuba.
see,
You asked for that, James. You asked for that. You teed that up, bro.
hey, I know all I have to do is put it, like you said, tee it up.
Tee it up.
Hey,
Bill's gonna knock it out.
I'm telling you. So anyway, just thinking about it, Bill, this new Dodgers lineup with Freddie Freeman. What do you? I mean, you
Look,
might compare it to somebody
at one
that
point,
we've never
I
heard.
jokingly said Von Miller might sign with the Dodgers. The Dodgers have decided that they're not playing with you fools anymore. We're not having it. We don't care if it costs us $1 billion. We're going to win this thing. Anyone who hits the market, you have to start with the Dodgers, right? It's almost like they have rights of first refusal on anybody. You think Correa won't sign with them? Why not? Right? He'll be a utility player. We'll figure something out, right? Nobody is off limits to the Dodgers. There's no player that you can rule out going to the Dodgers. Freddie Freeman is the word icon gets overused, so I won't quite use that. But he is a part of the lifestyle of Atlanta, Georgia. And there were people who I guarantee you wept openly. I guarantee you there were people who wept openly. Strong men wept when Freddie Freeman left. And the fact is that it's baseball. This thing happens. It happens. This is not even an egregious thing. What's going on in Cincinnati, that's egregious, but that's probably for a different show. Cincinnati's become what's called a 4A franchise. They're not quite a major league team anymore. They just develop talent for other teams. But Freddie Freeman someday will have, maybe it's not his number retired, but they'll do something for him, right? When he finally is done with baseball, there'll be a Freddie Freeman day. They'll do something for him in Atlanta. He will never be, no matter where he plays from now on, he'll never be forgotten there. But him going to Los Angeles, I mean, there's my shocked face. I don't know what you want me to say, James. I don't want to say I saw it coming, but I had a feeling. I'll leave it at that. I'm sure Demetrius has hopefully even stronger and probably more well-formed insights.
So no, I mean, you did a good job. It is not fair, right? And I've done this. I've done this in Final Thoughts. You've given me topics. We talked about the CBA a week or two ago. This is not fair. And I generally come from the Detroit sports standpoint. The Tigers can do nothing about this. The Detroit Tigers, and their owner owns the hockey team in Detroit. His dad started Little Caesars Pizza.
Yep.
It's not that Christopher Ilitch doesn't have mounds of money, because there's the Hockey Town Cafe. There's an entire district in Detroit that the Ilitch family owns. That's not it. Bill said it best very, very in the beginning. I don't even want to go much further. I'm not playing with you fools anymore. That's what the Dodgers are saying. They're playing a different game. It's the chess versus checkers analogy. It's not fair. It's just not fair. And I'm not complaining, because there is a world where Christopher Ilitch could say, screw it all, and do crazy stuff. I know I signed Javi Baez. Carlos Correa, here's $240 for you. Hey, they could do that.
They could.
It doesn't make sense. It wouldn't be smart, right? What they're doing, building through the draft, and they've got young kids coming up. Great and exciting for me. We have no chance to win the World Series, Mr. King. We have zero chance to win. We can't compete with this. Right. And so I could do my final thoughts today on the definition of what a salary floor means. Everybody knows what a salary cap is. Yep. They understand what a salary cap does and the importance. This sport needs a salary floor. There is no competitive balance in this sport, and it's disheartening. I'm still going to enjoy the Tigers season. The Tigers are building something good. I love it. This isn't fair. when they can just drop 162 mil, and now they can throw out Freddie Freeman and Chris Taylor and both the Turner guys. And oh yeah, we got a dude in the outfield named Mookie Betts. And what about Cody Bellinger? Yeah, they got the Fresh Prince at catcher. The guy's name is Will Smith. It's not actual Will Smith, right. but their lineup isn't fair. And so right now it's sort of like, all right, the Tigers will do what they do. Bill's statement about the Reds, and there are other teams like the Pirates and the Royals. How are they supposed to do this? What are they supposed to do? They don't have local TV contracts that give them the kind of money that they just can't do it. There's probably 12 teams in that league that, short of being fiscally irresponsible, like outrageously irresponsible, they have no chance. They have zero chance. And I think you ultimately kill your sport if you create such a competitive imbalance where every year in March or April, I could give you 8 teams. I could give you 6 teams. Take those 6 teams versus the field. My confidence level in the 6 teams that I could probably be arrogant and say 4 teams. Give me 4, you can have the field, any amount of money to win the World Series. Right. You don't want that. You don't want that. And
what
like
we're talking,
I said,
what he's saying is unfortunately true. It's the 3 biggest payrolls and the Rays, who I don't know how they keep doing it.
Right, exactly.
But
right.
God bless them.
Yep.
God bless the Rays for keeping the door open for teams that aren't the biggest spenders in baseball. Look,
there's a way.
That's what everyone tells themselves. We're doing what the Rays are doing.
Yep. That's what the Tigers are trying to do right now.
That's what everybody's who's not, the plutocrats. But everyone else is like, yeah, we'll do what the Rays. No, the problem is they don't always have the Rays talent evaluation.
You don't.
But
exactly. Yeah.
Whoever it is, those guys are magicians.
There should be a 30 for 30 on how that team in Tampa, Florida has been as competitive. I like plutocrats, by the way. I'm going to steal that. So for the record, that's how it is. But I go back to Wellington Mara, I believe who made this decision years and years ago. The NFL prints money. It is what it is now because that guy who owned the New York Giants said, okay, I'm willing to split equal parts with teams in Kansas City, Missouri, and hell, Green Bay, Wisconsin, for the betterment of the league. That's why that league is the best thing ever.
Yep.
Baseball is in danger of creating an environment where 25 teams don't matter every year. Every year, there's 5-6 teams, and the rest of the teams don't matter. Long term, that's not sustainable. That's not good for the health of your sport. So I didn't know you were gonna give me a platform to go off on baseball because I could do the whole show on this. You know me. This ain't fair. I don't like this thing. Like Freddie Freeman is not supposed to go to the Dodgers, right? There's a lot of teams in that association that just couldn't even make the call. And now this is not even right. And it really is what Bill said early. The Braves got that World Series, and the Dodgers are like, to hell with this. I'm done playing games with y'all now. All right, if y'all want me to be that guy, I'll be that guy. So the Dodgers, metaphorically, are just going to be that dude. Say, all right, come on, Freddie. And they might not be done, by the way. They might not be done.
No, they might not be done. And, the strange thing is when you talk about, kind of history repeating itself, even in sports, I can remember when we had this same conversation about the Yankees.
Yeah.
And now the Yankees are simply trying to outspend the Mets. They have no chance of
the Yankees just want to be competitive. That's all. Tough world of Major League Baseball.
Absolutely.
What do you guys think about the DH coming to the National League finally?
Well, just so you know, Bob Costas has been inconsolable. I just want you to know this. All your real old school fans of people who choke up when they see a well executed bunt and run or whatever.
Yeah,
they're in shambles, right? Those people who love that drag bunt, people who just can't get enough of really executed hit and runs and.
Yeah, they like to reference the double switch. The double switch is always the thing you hear about. It's like the double switch actually isn't done that often. Statistically, it actually doesn't happen that often. But they were like, what's the double switch? Okay, I'm sorry, you're losing the double switch. To me, it was always a deal where you listen to the voice of your customer. you listen to the voice of your customer in any business, right? And the voice of the customer has been saying one way or another, we need the leagues to be the same. And the Players Association, I mean, I could get all geeky right now and tell you this equals jobs. This equals job. This is guys now who get to Miguel Cabrera now can play another 4 years, and he's got 16 new teams that he can go play for, right? Because he's not going to be anybody's everyday first baseman, but the dude knows how to hit a baseball still. So now for a guy like him, it's great. These guys who can still hit, but they can't play anywhere in the field without being a liability. 16 new jobs just came open. That's what a Players Association, they slipped it under the radar, but I mentioned it. And I thought, you know what? That's more money in players' pockets. That's a good gig if you can get it, right? If you can get that gig, there ain't too many better. And it was inevitable. It needed to happen. But it was just like Bill said, you got those old heads who are holding on to the drag bunt and the double switch. And eventually they were going to die. We just didn't wait for them to die. So we just went ahead and made that change now.
So you guys are talking about baseball back, when I watched baseball. It's like, when you had position players, you didn't have position hitters.
Right.
It's like,
somewhere people who refuse to, like, if you have a Nelly, like a mint Nelly Fox card somewhere in your collection, it's a sad day for you.
You're not happy.
Right.
No, I was going to ask you, Bill, who is the first shortstop to hit 250 home runs?
Ernie, probably?
Was it Ernie?
Yeah, my initial guess would be Ernie.
That was my initial guess too.
I'm not sure. I'm just talking about I'm just talking about how things have progressed.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see a shortstop at 600 pretty soon.
That used to be a defensive position.
Right.
My initial guess, without looking it up, would be Ernie Banks.
That's my guess as well.
Yeah, but there are other ones. I mean, but think about it. Once they went to interleague play, the DH thing became moot, right? At that point, you've decided we're going to intermix teams. They're going to play games in the season. Old baseball is not the same. There used to be their league and our league. You win a pennant, they have a pennant, and it was truly, you didn't see those guys playing during the season. You didn't get to see those guys, right? Like literally.
Scouting reports all the
exactly.
I mean,
once you went to interleague play, they could have changed the rules then. But there were, guys holding on to that stuff. I think it's fine as a real baseball fan. I'm fine with the way the game used to be. I'm fine with the wild card. I'm fine with all of it. It's an evolution thing. What I don't like, and I'm not going to waste a bunch of our time, I'm tired of knuckleheads telling me the game needs to be faster, pace of play. I don't care. I'm old man on that one. If you think that taking 7 minutes out of a baseball game improves your life, you got serious psychological problems, and maybe you're just not a baseball fan. I don't need a pitch clock. Maybe you're just not a baseball fan. If you need everything to happen super fast and they got to go, you might just not be a baseball fan. Go watch something else.
Basketball might be more your sport.
More your sport. I don't need a pitch clock. I don't need pace of play. I don't need them to take 7, 8, 10 minutes out of a baseball game. So what? They can put more commercials? Because that's what they're going to do. The broadcast is going to be the same. This is going to make more revenue marketing-wise. But the people who are always like, the game's just too slow. It takes too long. No, you're just not a real baseball fan. And that's okay.
No, you have to have you have to be a certain brand of fan to sit and watch a baseball game.
Yeah.
And that's whether it's in person or on television. You just have to, if that's not your cup of tea, then like you said, there are some games that need to keep some type of purity, and I think baseball is one.
Yeah, people don't have patience, but it's a commitment. It's a summer-long commitment.
Or 3 hours. Though, is listening to a baseball game. Grab your transistor radio, right? That's how you know if you're a real fan.
No, well, see, real fans. I'll tell you what a real fan does. I had an uncle that was a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. I probably told this story before, but before every game, he would draw up his little box score and he would sit patiently and listen to chart every pitch. I mean, this was a baseball fan.
I've scored games. I've scored multiple games on an actual scorecard. I have them saved. Yeah.
And like Bill says, whether, some games Pirate games weren't televised, so he's there with his transistor radio,
Right.
holding
Listening to
his ear
Bob
up to
Prince.
it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
that's it.
Yep. That's it.
So yeah, like baseball is one of those games that a lot of us have come up on, but I don't think the modern generation
They don't care.
appreciates
They don't.
the history nor
Yeah.
the what the slowness of the game means. I mean, and a lot of things have speeded up. I mean, look at base running. You look at uh, we have more 100-mile-an-hour pitchers now.
Sure.
We have guys that throw change ups at what 79, 80 miles an hour.
Right.
Yeah,
And they've
yeah,
altered baseballs, they've altered bats. Guys have
yeah.
better equipment. All that stuff is fine. I mean, my feeling is simple. You haven't lived until you listen to Ernie Harwell call a baseball game.
There you go.
And I got the pleasure of doing many, or whoever your guy is. And maybe it's Buck, maybe it's Ufer in Milwaukee. Everybody's got someone. Maybe it's Vince Scully. I don't know. You should have scored a game at least once, and you should have heard a game exclusively on the radio at least once. And if you haven't, I really don't want to be friends with you. So that's my feeling.
All right, guys. Well, as usual, another curveball thrown by
Dude, I love you for giving 20 minutes of the sports script to baseball. You gave baseball 20 minutes. That's the longest we've ever talked about baseball on the crib.
If I can
love
get
it.
if I can get 3 minutes on amateur wrestling, I'll die happy. We're getting closer.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
The NCAA wrestling championships are about to happen. The real March Madness, but go ahead.
I believe they are in Detroit, Michigan doing this, by the way. Downtown Detroit right now. Yes, sir.
Okay. Hey guys, let's talk a little NBA. Hey, my guy Kyrie.
Here we go.
KD is hurt, man. And
Here we go.
It's costing me, but we're not going to talk about him tonight. Hey, let's talk about Pop though. Pop passed Don Nelson. What do you guys think about Pop's passing? Did you think that first of all, did you think that he was going to stick around this long, Bill?
The only thing that made me wonder is his wife's passing, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but the man doesn't have hobbies. I mean, what was he going to do? I'm not trying to be mean. I mean, like, what? I mean, guys like him, I mean, he literally would do what Jerry West did, right? He'd be a consultant for somebody or something. I mean, what's he going to do? I mean, he's fluent in Russian. I guess he could translate things into Russian. I mean, or from Russian to English. I mean, he doesn't. He's not a guy. Wordle. Maybe you'll pick up Wordle.
Everybody's gonna pick up Wordle. What are you talking about?
I mean, like what? That's the only thing that, like I said, that's the only thing that put any doubt in my mind. If his wife were still with us, I would. Yeah, he'll coach until he dies, practically. But I mean, that was the only thing. I wondered if that would be the thing that made him decide to look at life differently, but it apparently didn't. So he's a basketball coach. Apparently that's about the extent. I mean, that's what he does.
And he does it really well, by the way. I mean, and so as human beings, I will say, speaking for all human beings, if you find something you're really good at and you love it, right? You can fall into what Bill just called. He doesn't have hobbies. Popovich doesn't have coaching basketball is his hobby. That's his hobby. And he's clearly one of the best to ever do it. Now, I will say to you up front, because I'm a big fan of Greg Charles, another Charles, by the way, Greg Charles Popovich off the court. I think he is a better person than he is a coach, and he might be one of the best coaches of all time. What he has done in terms of what you're talking equality, like Becky Hammond, that's some groundbreaking stuff he was doing there for women and coaching. Social issues. Greg Popovich is a good dude. Like, I have this pet peeve about the liberal use of the word GOAT. I generally think only the dude over my right shoulder deserves it, but Popovich is one I'll allow for that. I'll give a pass. I'm a big Popovich guy. Like I said, I think he's a better person than he is a coach, and I think he's one of the best to ever do that. So yeah, I'm a big Popovich. I'm happy for him. He deserves all the flowers.
Yep.
Yeah. Give me your flowers while I'm above ground. I understand.
Yep. Absolutely.
Demetrius, Cat becomes the first center since Shaq dropped 51 to drop 60 the other night. He's the first player in NBA history with 60 points, 15 rebounds, and a 60% 3-point shooting average for that game. All the talk about Jokic and Embiid. Has anybody forgotten about Cat?
Yes, but there's a simple explanation. A lot of it is driven. So I'll just be honest. I probably have said this on the show. I have a tremendous disdain for the worldwide leader, the four letter. They anointed themselves the worldwide leader. And when you decide you're the leader, you have to understand people are following you, right? What they tend to do is glorify East Coast and a handful of other teams in certain markets. So if you play in the Midwestern part of this country, especially if your team's not that good, right? If you play for the Dallas Cowboys, it doesn't matter what you do because they're going to dedicate hours to that team. But if you play for an average or a bad organization that's in the Midwestern part of the country, they're not going to talk about you. Doesn't matter how good you are. Embiid plays on the East Coast. Jokic is an exception, right? You can be the exception. Karl Anthony Towns always been this good.
Yep.
So Chicago is probably an exception to that rule, and Green Bay fits the mold because they've been exceptional. So the rule is if you play in one of these Midwest towns, Detroit's one, that's why I'm salty. The Cincinnati's, the Cleveland's, Indianapolis, you better be exceptional. To get their attention, you have to be exceptional. He plays in Minneapolis, right? He plays with the Timberwolves. That's it. He got lost in who. If he was a Laker, hell, if he was a Clipper, right? God forbid he's a Knick or a Celtic. Man, he's so talented.
Guys like him, guys like Ja Morant, if they played in a different market, do you realize there'd be like Ja Morant such and such snacks, Ja Morant energy drinks, Ja Morant
donuts,
things to tie your hair with. Like we would never stop hearing about Ja Morant if he played for New York or Los Angeles or the Celtics or whatever. Everything you point out is so stupidly true. I certainly didn't forget about Karl Anthony Towns. Now, as you pointed out, others might have. Right. I mean, we're talking about a top 3 to 4, I think top 3 current big man in the league who can do some of the things that none of the others can do, right? Exactly. I mean, Giannis is more durable and more athletic, right? I'm trying to think if has Giannis ever had an injury that made him miss more than a game or two?
No, Giannis is pretty durable. Yeah,
Giannis is crazy.
So is Cat. I mean, I think
they're both very durable, right? They're both durable. And that was at one point sort of the knock on Embiid, but he's sort of toughened up or become more durable, whatever. But those 3 guys, and then Jokic is technically a big man. You know what I mean?
He is legitimately a big.
Well, he's a very large man. Let me rephrase. Right? Allow me to rephrase. But he doesn't play the center position really.
Well, Giannis technically is a power forward. Right. That's why I put that. That's why
whatever.
I put him in. Well, that was the reason why I put Jokic, Embiid.
Yeah, Embiid's the real comp. To me, Embiid's the real comp. Jokic is a unicorn, just a different kind of dude. Maybe because he's European, whatever. Embiid's the real comp. But Cat's a 23-11 career guy.
Yep.
What are you talking about? 23-11. He's like 7 years in, by the way. He didn't start a couple. This dude, no legal issues, nothing I've ever heard of him getting in any trouble. It's like he plays for the Timberwolves. He just plays for the Timberwolves. That's his sin. He plays in Minneapolis. That's it.
That's what he did wrong. He did wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. We won't even talk about the show that I do in Minneapolis on Saturday. I mean, he probably goes to the stadium and back home. Probably has a World War II bunker under his house, but that's a different conversation altogether. It seems, let's see, Curry. I really had to rephrase this question because it had started out about the return of Draymond Green and how this was going to gel this Golden State Warrior team. But I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch this video or not.
Yeah.
Uh, and some people are saying that this is a dirty play, and some people are saying that this is just a basketball play. The fact that Curry himself didn't dive for the ball or go after the ball is kind of what's in contention here. But as we all know, because I mean, we've all played playground basketball, and this was before it was, you know, before contact was illegal. Most
Yeah,
of
I
us,
played basketball mostly with football players.
yeah.
Donald Rhodes, the West brothers. All these guys
Well,
played college football.
and most of the time, unless you were actually really courageous or you had a really goddamn good game, you didn't take your ass up through the middle. I mean, this was our era. But what do you guys think? I mean, in our era, no harm, no foul. This era, maybe things we've seen a little different. What did you think, Demetrius?
I think that it is because it's Steph Curry that we're doing a hindsight, asking a question that shouldn't be asked. Because there's a place in this league for guys like Marcus Smart and the way he plays the game. In fact, hustle is a characteristic that a lot of teams want in a guy. You
Thank
want
you.
that hustle dude, right? There are dudes who bend over to pick up a ball, and then there are dudes that dive on the floor for the ball. That has made guys money. And this is not a new thing. Marcus Smart plays basketball this way and
Yep.
has all along. So the idea that contact in any sport can lead to injury, right? I saw Kevin Durant plant his foot, shoot a shot, and blew out his Achilles. I've seen guys step on other guys' foot, twist their ankles. I've seen inadvertent elbows. All these things happen, right? The idea that diving on the floor for a loose ball, at best I could say he's doing too much, but that's who Marcus Smart is. That's who he's always been. So no, this was a hustle play by a historically Bill Carroll glue guy who does nothing but hustle. That is one of his best characteristics. He is the definition of hustle guy. Look up hustle guy in the dictionary. There's a picture of Marcus Smart on the floor trying to save a ball from going out of bounds in the middle of the second quarter of a 12-point game because he doesn't know how to play basketball any other way. And if Steph doesn't get hurt on this play, there's no question, there's no debate, there's no controversy. Injuries happen. Sometimes they're accidental. If you try and take hustle out of the game, good luck with that. Because I don't think any coach in the league is going to say, hey, you're hustling a little too much. We need you to dial back that hustle. Can you not dive for the loose ball? Can you not try and save us a possession? Don't play so hard. Don't do that. You don't want that. And nobody wants that. This is a media creation of, it's unfortunate Steph got hurt. He could have got hurt. Isaiah Thomas blew his Achilles just landing, trying to rebound the basketball, right? You've seen every injury in every way. This idea that Marcus Smart was trying too much or God forbid tried to roll up on Steph. No, that's going to happen because all these injuries have. Guys bump knees. There's all kinds of things. LeBron opened up a gash on Isaiah Stewart's forehead off of a rebound on a free throw or open hand smack or whatever. Stuff happens. To take this to that level, it's just because it's Steph. If that would have been random Detroit Piston guy who got his ankle rolled, we wouldn't even know about it.
Or literally, it's the reverse. If Steph dives and he rolls into Marcus Smart, people are like, look at Steph at this point in his career
look
playing
Steph
so
getting
hard.
on the floor. Right, getting on the floor. Right. So this is some of that. And that comes with, and I'm not even accusing Steph of being a diva, but certain players get different coverage, get different treatment. You view their play and things that happen to them differently. And Steph has earned that. So this is a knock on Steph. This is a knock on media coverage. We shouldn't be talking about this.
Steph's not talking about it. Like you said, it's the media that's talking about it.
We should talk more baseball instead of this. I'm kidding. It's a legit question because you have to wonder why do they do it. And again, I don't want to blame everything on the four-letter devil, but I could.
Okay, guys, with only 13 games left in the regular season, Kyrie is only eligible for one, by the way. Will Ben Simmons play a game for the Nets before the playoffs? What do you think?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I'm going to say, God, if only we're allowed to just push. I'm going to say, I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to say one, it won't be a lot, and two, it won't be good. But I think they want him to have been on the floor before, because you can't just toss him out there. And well, I guess you could, but it would seem unwise to just toss him out there in the playoffs, having not played at all. Like that would be bad. Is the word I'm looking for. That'd be bad. So I assume he's going to play a little bit, sort of mop up, refuse time, detritus minutes, pick a term, just so he gets his feet wet-ish. But he won't play a lot, and he probably won't play terribly well. But they want him to have done something before he has to be, tossed out in a playoff situation.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do what I always do whenever you bring up Bill's favorite team. I'm going to go on a rant about his boy. Ben might play, but I don't think it matters, because as long as World B. Flat is on this ultimate crusade of selfishness, the Nets' chances of winning anything meaningful are limited anyway. So they'll likely have to go to play a play-in game in Toronto. And for those who don't know, Toronto's in Canada. So Mr. B Flat cannot go to Canada, and he can't play in Canada. So now KD's wasted a year of his career because World B Flat wants to be the smartest guy in the room, right? And it's fine. I'm not going to get on my vaccination. People can do whatever they want to do. I think it's sad that Kevin Durant has wasted another year of his career, and he tries to defend this. So Ben probably will play, but he won't have an impact, because what's the likelihood he'll be in game shape? Because there's in shape, and then there's basketball shape. And they're not the same thing. They're not at all the same thing. So I think KD alone can carry them to a point. But eventually, they're going to have to play Milwaukee or Miami, Boston or Philly. And they're not going to beat any of those teams, Ben back or not. And I don't think he'll be in shape. So there's a part of it that, to me, is it's kind of moot. Doesn't matter if Ben plays or not. They're not good enough to beat the 4 teams I just named, especially when World B Flat can only play a fraction of the games. I'm kind of tired of talking about them as well, because of all the nonsense that goes around them and the drama. I'm just thrilled that I get to see Jeffrey Fann for the first time in real life. I always seen just a logo.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't really know the guy, but I've been on 8 podcasts with him. See him? Is that a Georgia Tech hat? Yes.
In
rocking
honor.
his Georgia Tech hat, going ACC. I love it.
In honor of Georgia Tech playing their spring game on St. Patrick's Day on a Thursday night of the
same
NCAA
day that the
opening round.
That's just planning. That's planning 101 right there. Well, it is good to finally see you, meet you. We've been on a number of podcasts together. I don't know if you just want me to transition, James. Sorry. I don't think we need to talk about the Nets anymore. Jeffrey's here. Let's talk Big Ten versus ACC. That's what I'm here for.
All right. Yeah.
Well, now, Jeffrey, welcome to the show as always. And I guess this is the first time that you and Demetrius have been on at the same time, as far as being able to see one another. But Jeffrey, little interesting first day of competition. As always, we always had that one upset. I don't know if this was the one that we were really expecting, but Jeffrey, kind of give us a recap of the ACC season and how Duke ended up with the number 2 seed instead of a number 1.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was not a vintage ACC season, no question about it. All year I'd called for 5 ACC teams to make the tournament, and that's what they ended up with. But only Duke is in a protected seed. They didn't have anyone else higher than an 8. I think North Carolina was an 8 or a 9, but they won today. But I mean, it all stemmed from the struggles out of conference early in the season. I mean, they just had a terrible time out of conference. Pre-conference season. So even teams that, had solid conference seasons like Notre Dame, 15-5 in the ACC, barely made the tournament. But I mean, here this first, during the first part of the tournament here, it's been a little bit of a comeback, still a long way to go, but a little bit of a comeback for the ACC. Notre Dame, took down Rutgers last night in one of the best games that I think you're going to see at any point in the tournament. A great game last night. North Carolina really played very well against Marquette today, winning that game by 30. I mean, they just, they had too much size for them. And if they play like they did today, which was very similar to the way they played in the second half, ruining Coach K's final home game,
Yes.
Yeah, they can definitely give Baylor a little bit of a run for their money. I mean, they're going to have to play at the top of their game to knock off Baylor or to even have a chance. But we've seen them at times play very well with Baycock. They can shoot the three. With Manic, I think his name is. If I just remember the long-haired guy with the beard. I hope I got his name right if I'm remembering. But
Long-haired guy with the beard is fine.
yeah. I think it's Manic.
Yeah.
But if they play like they did today and the way they have at several points in the second half of the season, they got a chance to give Baylor a run for their money. And then I think Notre Dame is playing Alabama. That's going to be a tough turnaround for them. But Alabama is so inconsistent. That's a team that one day looks like they can be in the Final Four, and the next, they could go out in the first round losing by 10. I mean, Alabama's all over the place, so I wouldn't count the Irish out there. Virginia Tech is red hot.
Yes.
And they played extremely well in the ACC tournament. They played like the team that many thought they could be at the beginning of the year, and really started playing well down the stretch. And a lot of people have them in a good position against Texas, who some people think was seated too high at a 6. So I think that's a pretty good matchup for Virginia Tech. Miami and USC playing tomorrow. Miami's got that 3-guard lineup with Wong, Auguste, and Moore, which it's going to be a really good matchup with USC here in my neck of the woods in the upstate of South Carolina. I'm actually going to be there tomorrow, so I'm really looking forward to that game. So the ACC struggled this season, no question about it. But right now they're 4-0 in the postseason because Virginia and Wake Forest also won their opening round NIT games to go along with North Carolina and Notre Dame winning. So maybe ACC can make a little bit of a comeback here in the postseason.
Demetrius, you want to talk about your Big Ten guys? First upset today. What was it, Iowa?
Yeah, I'm obviously a Big Ten guy. Last year we got in 9 teams and everybody went home first weekend except Michigan. So what I mostly wanted when we got 8 this year was don't embarrass us. And Iowa promptly goes out and supports the most consistent statistical oddity in the history of the world is a 12 beats a 5. A 12 is going to beat a 5. Yeah. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what region. A 12 is going to beat a 5. So Iowa went home early. St. Mary just dispatched of Indiana, which is fine because I believe our league was very deep and very tough. And I still think in Wisconsin, Purdue, and Illinois, you got 2 3 seeds and a 4 seed, respectively, all really good basketball teams. They all have a chance to get to the Elite 8 in the Midwest, East, and South, respectively. Of course, I believe there's a team out of East Lansing, Michigan, a 7 seed in the West that I'm always rooting for, and I always believe has a chance. Although, if they do what they're supposed to do in a business meeting with Davidson tomorrow, which might be in Jeffrey's area, do what you got to do tomorrow, and then you get the Tom Izzo Coach K matchup on Sunday, which is just nice. I like in this tournament. Oftentimes there's good teams. I don't believe this year has that unbeatable team. There's some guys at the top that are really nice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jeffrey just got me. They got him. Wow. Okay. Talk about some brackets being busted. There's that.
Yep.
There's that. Kentucky goes down. But I think that there's some teams at the top. Well, maybe not, because I thought Kentucky was one of them that are really good, right? Gonzaga's good, but are they unbeatable? I don't know. Okay. What happens is sometimes it's about who's playing the best basketball. And Jeffrey mentioned Virginia Tech, and I'm telling you, I don't sleep on Virginia. They can play with. I'm sorry, that team plays at their potential. They can play with anybody. Forget about leagues and all that. Yeah. Virginia Tech's a good basketball
team. I have Tech in the round of 8.
Right now, I believe that we have 2 guys on our team that if they play hot, one is called Tyson Walker, the other guy's Gabe Brown. Tyson Walker and Gabe Brown play up to their potential. We are a tough matchup. Michigan State is a tough matchup because I have an unnatural love for Tom Izzo. I've never run from that, but I like who we are. And by the way, Michigan, I don't love to ever give flowers to that other school. They got a kid, Hunter Dickinson, that can carry them. because
Yes.
he's got a really good game, and they could go further than we think, although they've been up and down all year. So I think this is why this thing is the best thing ever. The message Jeffrey just typed is why this thing is, because on a given night, St. Peter can beat Kentucky.
Yep.
That's why this is the greatest thing going outside of the NFL. So I'm excited.
Yep.
I'm excited for the league. The Big Ten is a good league with good teams. I expected more from Iowa, but I'm telling you, don't sleep on Wisconsin or Purdue. These are some good basketball teams, and you should never sleep on us because we're built for this. Michigan State was built for March. They're always built for March. So I love it. I love it. I'm hoping that Duke and Michigan State play Sunday because that'd be a great game. I like that St. Peter beat Kentucky for some reason. I got nothing against Kentucky, but that's just exciting stuff.
Bill, of course, San Diego State, representing the city as usual out here. But what about USC, the Sun Devils? What about those? What about those guys?
The Pac-12 has a couple of teams that I think have a legitimate shot at the Sweet 16. I don't know if they have any teams that have a legitimate shot to make it past that point. I mean, ironically, the best teams in the West, are the team up in Spokane, Washington, right? It's probably the best team in the West. Yeah. And it's so funny when you think, because in football, it's all resources and it's all, look at this weight room that you could land, 4 747s in and things like that. And then in basketball, you just need the right coach. Like that's so much of everything in basketball. You get the right coach, your campus can have 1,400 kids on it. And, well, Gonzaga's a little bigger than that, but it's not a lot bigger than that. Wake Forest for a while was an absolute powerhouse. Now it was basically based on a good coach and one player, but they were an absolute powerhouse. And I think they had at the time 3,480 undergraduate students at the time when
Wow.
Tim Duncan was there doing damage. So you don't have to have this overwhelming force. You don't have to have 1 million of this and 1,000 of that. We've seen, what has happened at Butler, what's happened in other places. But the difference is that Gonzaga has become consistently a top 5 or so program year in and year out with none of the sort of foundationals in other sports you would need to have to be able to do that. They aren't right. I mean, it's a reasonably populated area, but it's not in some super dense, off the charts basketball talent area. It's not, it's not New York. It's not Southern California. It's not Memphis, Tennessee, which is stupid deep in every sport, really. So many talented athletes in like Memphis. It's not South Florida. I mean, it's none of those places where you just think you swing a dead cat and you hit an athlete. They don't have the largest budget. They don't have the most of anything. But once again, as I said, you get the right coach, right? And everything starts to fall in place for you. The Pac-12 has a real chance to reintroduce themselves, right, in this tournament. We just talked about the ACC, right? Everyone was sort of whining and moaning about the ACC not being a powerful whatever. And the hegemony is dead. Wow. But the point is that as basketball is decentralized, and I don't know I think it's actually a good thing, probably. I mean, the days when you could do what UCLA did, or even what Indiana was doing, are somewhat over. You can be a consistently good program. Kentucky is a consistently good program, but we just talked about what happened, right? They're still a consistently good program. They'll be good again next year, but you can't just pencil them into the Final Four. There was a time when you could pencil Louisville, Duke, one other ACC school, and Georgetown into the Final Four, 4 or 5 years in a row and be right 80% of the time. That's gone. That's over. And I don't think it's coming back, quite frankly.
Jeffrey, anybody wearing your glass slipper this year?
Well, I think St. Peter's.
I was going to say, if you say St. Peter's, you won.
Yeah.
Kind of cheating, but that's okay. We'll take that.
No. I mean, actually, when I looked at the throughout the bracket, I mean, I didn't really see like a deep seed that I thought was going to make a huge run in the tournament. I mean, I looked at a team like Michigan, for example, and felt like, they were an 11 seed, but we knew that was a top 10 team coming into the season.
Yeah.
I know the point guard had the concussion, but we know that team is capable of playing at a very high level as an 11. Um, and they were able to make a nice comeback against Colorado State today. I think we mentioned Virginia Tech, a red hot team coming into the tournament that could get on a run. But when you start looking deeper into the mid majors, I mean, one of the teams that I thought today um, was the Providence opponent. I think they were playing South Dakota
South
State,
Dakota
if I'm
State.
not mistaken.
Yeah,
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 and that was a team I thought, well, if they get by, Providence is an example. Maybe they can make a little bit of a run, but I didn't really see like a team that I thought would be a deep run. Uh, Cinderella from the mid majors. I mean, you could say you saw what St. Mary's did tonight, but I don't know if you call them a Cinderella, though. I
exactly.
mean, they're a 5 seed. They played well in the non-conference. I mean, I don't think you can say the schools out there with Gonzaga are really Cinderellas anymore. They're quality programs, and that conference has become a quality conference. Um, so yeah, I didn't really see what I thought would be a true Cinderella out there, but I did look at a couple 11 seeds like Virginia Tech and Michigan that have some talent or hot teams and could cause some trouble in there.
Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, well, I mean, Virginia Tech is the one that I had identified. I did two brackets, and in one of them, I had them making it to the round of. I think I had them making at least to the Sweet 16 in both, and I think I might even had them in the round of 8 in one of them. I think Virginia Tech's a problematic team to play against, especially if you aren't used to them, if you haven't seen them before. And we talked earlier about how in the old days, the American League and the National League were, literally two very different things. Like you might not see those guys except in maybe spring training games. And so in the case of basketball, though, there's teams play out of conference and you get a chance to see some, but you don't really get a chance to know most of these teams that you're going to see in the tournament. So it's a surprise. Not you've seen tape and you practice against them. Your backups who are trying to be this other team, but it's not the same. Who's going to really give you a sense of how fast somebody is or how athletic or how aggressive somebody is. It's not going to be this guy who's the ninth guy off your bench or the 11th guy off your bench. He's going to be able to really give you that sense. But I think Virginia Tech has certain things that will give other teams trouble. I think they're extremely active. I think they play some not always sound defense, but very interesting defense. And I think that they have guys. I think they have several people who can score different ways. And if you have 3 or 4 different players who can score 3 or 4 different ways from different parts of the court, you can be a hard out. So, yeah, Tech was the team that I identified before I got into this thing. Also, watch out for Tennessee.
Yeah.
Now, they'll probably get knocked off right after I said that, but that's another team that I thought might cause some trouble too.
Yeah, I don't know if Glass Slipper has to be based on a seed. I guess it probably does. And since they took Virginia Tech, and I am through blood oath that I took in East Lansing, Michigan 35 years ago, I cannot pick Michigan. So that's not going to happen. I like, and I don't know if it's seed though, because to me, the seed I like is a 4 seed. And I think it's Providence. I really like Providence. What I saw out of them, what I've been seeing out of them, but they're a 4. So is that Cinderella? I don't know. St. Mary, I think, is a 5, and I really like what I saw from them. I don't know if this St. Peter train can keep going, but I don't want to be blasphemous talking about the Saints, right?
All the Saints, yeah.
Right?
Just pick all the Saints.
I got to be careful there. If I had to, I have to go with Virginia Tech. I mean, the truth is, I really like the way Virginia Tech is playing, and the guys covered it already, so it's a little bit of a weak answer, but I cannot pick that other team down the road, so I'm not doing that. I'm going to go with, based on the seeding, I'll go Virginia Tech, although I really like Providence, so.
But now with that St. Peter's win, and I just had to look at the bracket again. You're either going to have either Murray State, San Francisco, or St. Peter's is going to be in the Sweet 16.
I know. Exactly, right? Yep.
So I mean those are teams that aren't your typical basketball powerhouses, and one of those 3 is going to be in the Sweet 16 after St. Peter's knocked out not Kentucky, and it can.
Exactly.
I look at Kentucky. I see the same thing with almost all of the top SEC teams. They all look the same to me.
Yep.
And it's not that they're not good teams. I think they're really good. I think Auburn is really talented. They're athletic. These
Yeah.
teams, they run the court like crazy in the SEC, but they're all so undisciplined. And that's why as
That's it.
good as I think Auburn is. I think Tennessee is a good team. I mean, they're capable of knocking off in a one-game situation, knocking off any team in the country. Gonzaga, Kansas. We saw what Kentucky did to Kansas, but across 6 games, I don't trust any of them to make it 6 games because as talented as they are, I think they're all too undisciplined to
Right.
finish the deal. They all look very similar to me.
Yep. Yep. And I think that's why a team like St. Peter's can do that because they have to be disciplined to
Yes,
get to where they've
exactly.
gotten. They have to be
Right.
really, really disciplined in their system. And an SEC team, as you stated, they see the same thing because they're all kind of alike. So they don't know what to do when they come out and play a St. Peter and see something different. It's a struggle when you don't have discipline. And when times get tough, you don't know what to do. So, yeah, I think it's a great point.
Jeffrey, do we have a definitive number one as far as I mean, usually in years past we've always had that guy. Do we have that guy this year?
I think Gonzaga is probably the closest. But you saw what happened today against Georgia State. I mean, that was a game that went pretty deep into the second half, and they struggled with a 16 seed. So I don't think there is that team this year that you can just say is heads and shoulders above everyone else. Um, I mean, like I just mentioned, Kansas is a number one seed, but we saw them get blown out at home by
Yep.
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Yeah.
Um, Baylor's taken. They lost early in the Big 12 tournament. Arizona, they're waiting on a couple of injuries to see if. I mean, I think Arizona is a pretty quality team, but if they were to get matched up with a Tennessee in a game situation, one game situation, Tennessee can knock off Arizona. Villanova can knock them off. So I think it's not that I don't think that there's like 20 teams that can win the national title, but it's wide open among about 10 of them. We don't even know about Duke, even though I wouldn't put them in that category where I think they could win it. If they suddenly started actually defending anybody, they're talented enough to make it to the Final Four. Their issues defensively, and Mike Krzyzewski just can't seem to get that team to, either they can't play defense or they won't play defense, and he just can't get them to consistently, defend the perimeter on the ball. I mean, they're getting blown. Any team that passes the ball with any ability causes them all kinds of issues. And I don't think it's. I think in some years they've had athletic issues guarding on the perimeter. I don't think that's the problem this year. They're athletic enough to guard, but they rotate. Their rotations are terrible. Their footwork is awful. They just are in bad position defensively, and I don't think that's just anything that's going to be able to be fixed in the tournament. But I mean, if the stars align and they start defending, I mean, offensively, Banchero, Wendell Moore, I mean, they've got players that can play with anyone in the country. So it's pretty. There's no prohibitive favorite, but if I had to pick just one, I would say Gonzaga because of of the talent they have, but they're not unbeatable by any stretch.
What do you think, Demetrius? Is there that guy out there in the tournament this year?
No, I agree with Jeffrey wholeheartedly. I do like Arizona. I think when they're fully healthy, I do like Arizona. But I think they're beatable. Everything he said is right. There is nobody out there where you go, "Oof, I just don't see how anybody can beat them. And there have been years where that team existed. That doesn't exist now. Even Gonzaga. I think what he said about Duke, dead on. Duke has the capability if they played they're not playing well right now. And I'm a victim of recency bias often when I talk about sports. What have I seen from you in the last 4, 5, 7 games? I'm but I'm a Michigan State guy, so I'm happy about this because I think Sunday could be good if we handle our business tomorrow, right? To answer your question, if you made me pick someone, I would pick Arizona. Now, I would then tell you I like 3 or 4 teams every bit as much as I like Arizona. I like Providence a lot. I think Purdue's a really good team who's got players, NBA players that are that dude. Ivy, that's a Bill Carroll that dude. And he could be a guy who would carry his team through 6 games, pull a Danny Manning circa 88. Bill will correct me if that's the wrong year. Ivy's a guy who can do that kind of thing. But there's nobody that scares me. To your question, my answer to your question would be no.
Well, that's two, Bill. You gonna make this unanimous, or do you have one?
I mean, there is Gonzaga is the team that I have probably the most confidence in, but to sort of quote Rich Eisen, it's still upper register.
Right.
There's no team where I'd be like, yes, I'm betting the Avery's college money on this. No, none of those teams have even come close to. Every time I think a team might be, as you said, that guy, they prove to me that they aren't. And usually soon after I start to believe in them, as if to make sure I don't believe in them.
Watch out, Gonzaga. Watch out, Gonzaga.
Right. So, right. So, there are teams that I think can get hot, and that's really whoever cuts down the net this year. That's what it's going to be, a team that got hot.
Yep.
Some player that had, was a 7th or 8th guy off the bench just goes out of his mind for a 3-game stretch. I mean, things that think of what NC State did, right? What 18-10 in the regular season, right? The legendary, Valvano team with Cozell McQueen and Thurl Bailey and sorry, you didn't bring me on here for this, but
I'm so proud of you, bro. You caught yourself early. I'm so proud of you, man. You were about to take us down a road.
I was gonna give you the roster, baby, but I stopped myself. But the point is that it's going to be something sort of like that. I think that there'll be one team that's a good, solid, consistent team against a team that, them? Right? I think that's what the championship's going to get out to. It'll be one team that we kind of saw coming, and then a team that almost nobody saw coming are going to be ones that play for the championship. And they both will have gotten there somewhat similar ways by having players that were good but inconsistent suddenly be consistently good. Right? And that's how you go from being a team that looks kind of like to a team that suddenly no one can beat. If Carolina was in the Final Four, would it shock me? Kinda. But could it happen? Yes. Right? We're talking about teams. All the teams we're talking about are teams that have enough talent. There's 27 teams probably with enough talent to make it to the Final Four. But will they do it? Most of them won't. Right? There's only 4 spots. But a couple of them will. A couple of teams, like I said, that have been an up and down mess will just suddenly manage to, for whatever reason, put it all together. Some teams play better when it's harder for whatever reason. I've never quite understood it, but some teams play better when it's harder. And then some teams fall apart. We're going to find out which.
Yes, we will. Jeffrey, we want you to come on as many times as you can during the tournament. I know you have an obligation there with the ACC, but tell us about your social media and give us your final thoughts.
Yeah, you can find me on Talking ACC Sports on Twitter. You find us blogging on the tournament, ACC centric at allsportsdiscussion.com. Think this year I get the opportunity to have a little firsthand. Got my tickets here in Greenville. If Michigan State and Duke match up, I do think that's a very, very dangerous game for Duke. So Duke's definitely going to have to elevate their game. I think if they get matched up with Michigan State and in that one, but I mean tournament. I mean it never fails. It never fails to be the greatest postseason event, like you all said, outside of the NFL. It's just unbelievable already. The first day, St. Peter's, pulling the upset, and it's just the beginning, and it's going to be fantastic. And from the ACC point of view, I hope I don't think the ACC really has a true national title contender. We talked about Duke a little bit about their talent is there, but I don't know if they can get through 6 games. But I'd like to see from ACC point of view at least a cup, maybe Duke and another ACC team make the Sweet 16 Sweet 16, I think, would be a credible postseason for the ACC. So we'll see how that goes. But as always, guys, enjoyed being on your show.
Yeah, good to see you, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hope we can get you next week, Jeffrey. I'll throw you down the line and you let me know what's going on. We'll keep up.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Just shoot me a note.
All right. You have a good night, Jeffrey.
All right,
Thank you
thanks,
so
guys.
much. Well, gentlemen, we have another guest tonight. I know Mike's going to be on, but I found this gentleman while I was kind of strolling around the outskirts of Minneapolis.
Yes, sir.
And he was talking about this team up there, the Vikings, and I thought that we'd give Mr. Scott the opportunity to come on the show tonight. We're going to talk a little football. We're going to talk about what some of the things that happened up there in Minneapolis, along with some others. Mr. Scott, how you doing? Welcome to the Sports Crib, and this is some of the fellas here.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, James, Bill, and Mr. Burgess. It's a pleasure being here, and so that I can kind of get the record straight. James King tell it. James King tell it. So you'd think several things, but I'm here to set the record straight, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, good to see you again. I got a chance to talk to you on a Monday a couple weeks ago. That was a good time. Good to see you on a Thursday.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Scott is also an old baseball aficionado. I guess I could put it that way. So he missed our previous conversation there on baseball. But Mr. Scott, I'm just kind of wondering, what do you think about this new Dodger lineup with the addition of Freddie Freeman?
Well, wait a minute. That must have slipped by me. I didn't know that happened. I know that they had signed Olsen, but I didn't know that the Dodgers had got Freddie Freeman. I think Freddie Freeman's an excellent ball player. I mean, I think he
would be correct.
Yeah, tremendous first baseman. He's a heart and soul type guy, and I don't know what's wrong with Atlanta.
Well,
You take chances on these guys that haven't been there, and you give them all this money, and then you fool around, and you know what you got with Freddie Freeman. You know what you got with him. I mean, they could have got a few more years for sure out of Mr. Freeman. I think he'll do quite well with the Dodgers.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's late breaking news for me. I hadn't heard that.
Well, you heard it here on the Sports Crib then.
So in other words, if you let James King tell it, sometimes he tells it as it is. So
well, now I'm going to start out with you here, Mr. Scott, because it seems like the NFL teams, 3 of them to be specific, have proposed some changes to the overtime rules. Now, the Colts and the Eagles want both teams to have a possession, at least one possession. The Titans want both teams to have an equal possession unless one of the teams, the team with the first possession, scores a 2-point conversion. So, Mr. Scott, I'm going to start with you. Which would you like to do? Keep the present system or adapt one of these 2 systems? And which one of these 2 would it be?
Well, I don't care for either of those systems. I mean, I think it should go back sudden death. I mean, this is the thing. You get knocked off, you get beat, you just have to come back, get up off the floor and come back the next day. I mean, so
or next year in
this watering everything down, it's just moving the goalposts, and they even look like the goalposts have been shortened up. Doesn't it look like? I mean, it look like the goalposts have been just a little bit more. These kickers, they miss, they hit the goal thing most of the time. They don't just miss; they actually hit the doggone thing. So no, I like the old sudden death. I like you go to overtime, you flip the coin, you take your chances. I mean, if you couldn't get it done during the first 60 minutes, well, so be it.
Love
That's
it.
my take.
Love it.
Too
Love
much
it.
water down.
No, I'm jumping in here, James. I don't care if it was my turn because that was too damn good. This is the time. Welcome, Mike. Good to see you.
Good to
This
see you
is the
guys.
time where I jump in. I throw on my black socks. I stand on my porch and I yell at little kids that are running on my grass. I agree with Mr. Scott. This is some participation trophy, life ain't fair bullshit is what this. We're after 9 o'clock. Yeah, this is some bullshit is what this is. I agree 100%. Go back to the old way. If you don't want me to win and I get the ball first, you know what you can do? Stop me.
There you go.
Play defense and stop me. That's it. This is no fair. I don't get a chance to touch the ball. You know what you had a chance to do? You had a chance to stop them from scoring. I hate this. Oh, I'm so glad Mr. Scott said that. That's it. I don't like any of those proposals. Go back. Coin flip, life ain't fair, sport shouldn't be either. Sometimes you're going to win the coin toss, sometimes you're going to lose it. But if you lose the coin toss, you got 11 dudes there whose job it is to stop the other team. Stop them. Stop them. It's that simple. We're trying to change the rules for these participation ribbon kids of today who think everything's got to be fair. I hate all these proposals. Go back to sudden death. Love it.
Here in the Vikings, years ago, we had a quarterback, Archie Manning, that just played here a very short time. The father of Peyton. Played a very short time. But they played a game against the Bears where he got sacked 11 times. And so he gets in the huddle and he talks to the running back, Teddy Brown, who was a good running back, Ted Brown in North Carolina.
Yep.
And he said, Ted, you're the last guy back here. You're supposed to stop these guys. What's going on? And he said, Ted told him, we don't have enough people. I mean,
what can you do, right?
Mike, welcome to the show. And since I think is it one of these proposals is coming from the Colts, what's your thoughts here? Are the Colts looking for a participation trophy?
They might be. They didn't participate in the playoffs, so they might as well participate in trying to make overtime rules change. I think basically, there's just too many variables. I'm going to be the one that says yes. I think both teams need a shot at this to call it. I'm very much a traditionalist in a lot of things, but the overtime needs to change in some way. I'm all about let's just line up the field goal kickers at the 35-yard line. You get 5 tries at it, and whoever makes the most.
We're going hockey shootout, Mike. What are you doing?
There we go.
What are we doing, Mike?
I'll do you one better. Let's do punt, pass, kick, catch.
Exactly.
Right. So your quarterback, right, has to punt, pass, and kick, and then he has to catch. Let's say 5 different balls, 5 different routes from the backup quarterback. Points are awarded based on artistic merit and degree of difficulty.
And Bill is only half joking right now.
I love you, Mike. Like I have a deep and abiding love for you. I really do. I think you're cool as all get out. But what are we doing here?
You're out of your mind. Mike, you're out of your mind is what Bill's trying to say. He's trying to be nice. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. And I like you too, but this is.
Wait, you don't love me? What the heck?
I mean, not with this nonsense. No, man, you're my dude. You're my dude for sure.
I've been downgraded, huh?
Oh man, Mr. Scott, always a lot of fun here on the Sports Crib. So if you don't want to have fun, this is not the place to be. So a lot of talk about this Russell Wilson trade here. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 3 potential starters. Now, I'm going to give this one to Bill, and Bill, I'm going to give you a chance to take everybody's points here. But I know. But I'm going to let you compare this trade to the Herschel Walker trade.
Well, I mean, it doesn't.
I know.
It doesn't
Right
compare
in the
to-
knife, Mister. Right in the stomach, Mr. Scott. Knife to the chest. Welcome to the sports crib.
Well, it doesn't really compare to the Herschel Walker trade for a few reasons. One, Herschel Walker was a very good football player, and people have a tendency to think of him as a bust. And I think, one, it's just inaccurate, and two, I think people just don't know what his career actually was.
Right.
If you go back and look at his career, it's like, oh, now he never was a consistent 20, 25 a carry guy, right? He was never used that way. I'm not sure exactly why he was never used that way. For whatever reason, teams looked at this 231-pound amazing athlete who in the state of Georgia won the 100 meters, was on the anchor leg of the 4x100 that won the state, was the state winning shot and discus, and was the winner of the something else. He won like
bobsled in the Olympics.
He won, right. He could have. He in a different world, he sets the decathlon record in a way that no one will ever touch it. Right. Yeah. If somebody had taught that dude the decathlon, the numbers he would have put up in the decathlon, no one would have reached. But you know, Georgia boy ends up playing football. The point is that this guy, for whatever reason, nobody ever used him the way that Jim Brown was used, or the way that John Riggins was used, or whatever. I'll never know why. Why teams looked at him and said, "Oh, we'll use him as a third down back and a return specialist." And I never got that, why that happened. But still, look at his career numbers. Not so much rushing, though his rushing is decent. Look at his all-purpose yardage number. He's over 10,000 all-purpose yards. So he's not a bust. However, it was a not smart trade. I think we could all agree to that. Yeah. And the jump starting of that franchise, in Dallas happens because of it. And the Vikings, didn't go swirling down the toilet, but clearly they could have used those picks. I think it'd be fair to say that. The difference here, one, is that you are getting a player who is still pretty darn close to his peak. Maybe not at his peak. It's certainly close. I think he might still be sort of at his peak. And he is a legitimate Hall of Fame quarterback. When you're getting a legitimate Hall of Fame quarterback and, you're getting – those are hard to come by. I'm trying to think of a way to put this. If you're trading a lottery ticket in for 203 pounds of pure platinum, right? Do you do that? Are you trading in lottery tickets? You're trading these lottery tickets, and who knows, right? A mystery box of anything, maybe even a boat. But you're trading in these lottery tickets to get 203 pounds of pure platinum. You don't just find platinum lying around every place. So no, it is not analogous to the Herschel Walker trade. Herschel Walker was not a person you build your entire franchise around. Yeah, could he have become that in a different world or a different time, or in the metaverse or whatever? Who knows, maybe. But it didn't happen. No one ever saw him that way for reasons I'll never fully understand, and no one ever made him the linchpin of a franchise. We know
that's the key. I'm sorry, Bill, to interrupt you. That's the key. I think Minnesota gets a bad rap. I've always thought Minnesota gets a bad rap for this trade because at that time they were a team that were right there. And they were Herschel Walker away from being, but then when they got him, they didn't use him right? And the trade was it's a unicorn of trades. It'll never happen again. Like the slight history lesson, because in the spirit of transparency, I wrote an undergrad paper on this trade. I did a whole undergrad paper on this trade. And what happened was Minnesota's GM was a guy named Mike Lynn. Yep. Dallas snuck a simple clause into this trade that he did not have the foresight to understand what they were doing. The original trade was 4 players and 3 picks. Dallas had a clause that says, if we don't keep these players, we can convert those players into draft picks. Yep. Ultimately, Dallas got 3 1s, 3 2s, a 3, and a 6. That's what they got. Those are the picks they got in that deal because they didn't keep any of those players, converted all of them to draft picks, and then they go out and they draft Emmitt Smith, Russell Maryland. They got Alonzo Hightower, Kevin Smith, Darren Woodson, amongst others, right? And they built their team. But that being said, at the time of the trade, I think Minnesota did the right thing. And once they got him, they didn't understand what they had. And they did not use Herschel. They could have used Herschel Walker in a way that they could have been the team they thought they were going to be. So to me, Dallas pulled a slight okey doke with that clause that Mike Lynn didn't really understand. And then they drafted well. So yeah, if Seattle goes out and drafts 3 future Hall of Famers and a bunch of really good players, we can talk about this in 10 years. If they win 3 Super Bowls in the next 10 years, we can talk about it. I don't think Minnesota got duped or fleeced. I think it was unfortunate, and I don't think they used Herschel right.
Well, they, what I remember about the Herschel thing is that it was all the expectations that he was going to do. They thought he was going to come, and this is it. And then that very first game, he ran out of his shoe. He ran out of his shoe. Shoe went flying, and they just said, "Oh, everybody just, oh, he's so wonderful." Yeah. But that really decimated the team for several years for the draft choices. They really just kind of were just flailing away for several years in the aftermath of that trade. And when they ended up trading Herschel, I can't even remember if they traded him or how he got. Did he go back to Dallas? I think that's
eventually,
right?
Eventually, yeah.
He eventually went back to Dallas. So I think that the trade had so much expectations, and I think that was the big thing with the fans up here is they expected a lot more to happen. And I believe you're absolutely right. He wasn't used right. He wasn't used as the workhorse I think that he should have been. Exactly. That they acquired. That's what they wanted him for. So it was coaching. It was the quarterback they had. I mean, football. If you've got like we saw the Rams with Aaron Donald. I mean, that's a whole different ball game when you got a player like that. Yeah. So I think the trade was very detrimental to the Vikings, but it was great in the sense that we got Denny Green. Right. Denny Green was a transformational coach in this area. Matter of fact, Denny Green lived a few blocks from me. Used to go to a restaurant right down the street called Currents. And Denny did so much for that. I mean, drafting Randy Moss. I mean, come on. Bringing Randall Cunningham was in Las Vegas laying tile. He was laying tile. Yep. And Denny Green brings him in. He brings in Matt Burke. Jeff Christie couldn't get a uniform from Tampa Bay. Becomes all pro. Gets David Dixon, who never played football, was a rugby player. Yep. And was a tremendous guard at 350 pounds with good footwork. And so, I mean, that trade, I think it led to the Denny Green, the desperation, and Denny did a great job here.
That's a good way to look at it. That's a great way to look at it. If it ultimately led to Denny Green, that's a good way to look at
it. So, Mike, is it what we said it is? Are they what we thought they are?
Well done. Well done.
And that's why they took the field.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, that's another thing. Denny, when he was up here, see, my kids went to school with Larry Fitzgerald. Matter of fact, Larry Fitzgerald went to Finger School in Chicago.
Yeah, right.
And Larry lives a few blocks away still, and he lives in Phoenix, the senior Larry. But when Denny went to Arizona, he drafted Larry because Larry used to be at their camps, and he would come to all the camps. He knew all the players. Yep. Then he was close to Larry Sr., who's a sports writer up here. Yep. So matter of fact, I'm doing something on the Denny Green years because I think Denny is getting such a bad rap. I'm sorry to say, rest in peace, Denny, because I think he was a fantastic coach, and I think he got a bad rap up here.
So, Mike, what's your thoughts on this?
I think on paper it kind of has the same feel. I also think this is the Broncos' attempt to do what the Rams did last year and say, okay, well, the Rams did it right. They won a Super Bowl, so let's do the same thing. We're almost right there. We get veteran Russell Wilson in, who's, as you guys mentioned, at the peak of his career, and let's try to do this. Let's try to repeat exactly what the Rams did. As far as in a comparison, a couple things that you guys didn't mention that came out was the trade value chart, and it's also interesting that if that trade, if the Cowboys drafted, I don't know who, just botched it completely, I think that we wouldn't have had the trade value chart anymore to start with, and things would be completely different. It was just great drafting, great planning, and that's basically the story that I can add to. You guys covered it so well that that's the only things that I kind of popped to my head.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you start the second part of this conversation off, Mike. Uh, Randy Gregory, he opted out of his deal with the Cowboys to sign with the Broncos. And is Denver still at best the third best team in that division? Patrick Mahomes is still there.
Yep.
Justin Herbert is still there.
Yep.
So I mean,
more to the point, the Chargers have had a very good free agency.
Well, you're getting ahead of yourself, Bill. Don't
I
start.
love when Bill jumps the gun. That's
Yeah,
okay.
don't start, Bill. We'll get to that eventually. So go aheid, Mike.
And then the Raiders added someone as well today.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
It's crazy. Talking about Wild West, this is about as Wild West as you're going to get in football terms. So very exciting. Randy Gregory went from a player who was basically out of the league because he couldn't contain himself, breaking the rules of marijuana and smoking. I mean, the guy showed up high at the NFL combine and was thrown out of the league because he couldn't stop using marijuana. And with the new collective bargaining agreement, they said, okay, well, we'll throw that away. And since you have new life, he played well with Dallas, and now in Denver is huge contract. I don't know if he deserves it, but I think he adds to this great defense that Denver has.
And his favorite dispensary will be well stocked. But Mr.
Especially in Colorado.
Yeah, he's in Denver. I mean, come on. Mr. Scott, what do you think? Does the addition of Russell Wilson, make Denver any higher than the third best team in the AFC West?
Well, I like Russell Wilson. I mean, I like Russell Wilson a lot. I mean, I don't know why Seattle would even get rid of him. I mean, I don't understand. He's been a franchise guy. It would have had another Super Bowl if it wasn't for the dumb coach not giving the ball to the running back to just go into and make the touchdown and get the win. So maybe he got frustrated with coaching. And I haven't looked too much, at football. I'm so excited about these Timberwolves actually doing something they haven't done. Maybe we get to that later, but I like Russell Wilson. I mean, I think it's going to be a real wide open on injuries. It's going to come down to injuries. I mean, there's a lot of tough teams there. So I'm going to enjoy this football season. But I would have kept Russell Wilson.
What do you think, Demetrius? Do you see him finishing any higher than third?
Yeah, this division is so talented. I think that I don't know. I mean, I still gotta like Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. You can't ignore what the Chargers have done, and we'll talk about what the Raiders did. I think to answer your question directly, at best they're third. I like the Chargers that much, and I still think Patrick Mahomes is the best player in that division, as well as the conference and possibly the whole league. So yeah, I'm gonna go with you. I think they're third, as good as they are, and they're very good after this trade. And adding Gregory, they're a really good team. And they still can 4 teams from one division make the playoffs. Is that against the rules? Is that even possible?
Not against the rules.
We might have to discuss that in a couple months, right? If all 4 of these teams end up in the playoffs. But yeah, I think I like your question. I think they're the third best team, and they're a really good team.
So, Bill, before we get to the Chargers, what do you think? Are they the third best team in this division at best?
I don't know about best. They certainly might end up being the third best team. A lot can happen, right? I mean, a lot will happen. We will look back on the discussions we're having now and think, oh man, I didn't see blank coming, right? We'll have something that will happen that we didn't see coming, whether it be a key injury, whether it be another trade that hasn't happened yet, whether it be some kid that's drafted who's obviously not on the team yet, coming in and changing the entire roster through being, an elite level player immediately upon arriving in camp. So we don't know what these teams will actually look like by the time they actually put on pads and play football. Potentially, I can agree with the statement, but we don't know what that team's going to look like. We don't know what any of these teams are going to look like when it's all said and done. The shoes have not yet dropped, people. We're only a couple of days into free agency. The draft hasn't happened yet. We don't know what any of these teams are going to look like.
Well, okay, let's talk about some shoes that are over here at the Chargers all of a sudden. We have Khalil Mack. You have cornerback J.C. Jackson.
Yep.
The Chargers, they've always had talent, Bill. But does Mack and Jackson bring that glue guy concept to a team that's loaded with talent already?
Well, those are not glue guys, so no. I mean, they can still get glue guys. I mean, that's once again, there's going to be a whole other wave of free agency. Like for those who've somehow forgotten, after the initial, sort of first rush is over, that second wave of free agency is mid and low price veterans, right? Some of whom will end up outperforming their contracts. The guys who are unlikely to perform to the extent of their contracts are mostly gone already, right? Those guys go in wave one. The guys that we later go back and say, man, I can't believe they gave us so much money to blank, right? Those guys go early, day one, day two. Now, a few days later, we're going to get guys, and we'll have the reverse. Like, I can't believe they got so-and-so for only 3.25 or whatever the number is. I can't believe that. And he was instrumental to them winning the division, the Super Bowl, whatever it is they win. So there's a lot more, like I said, still to happen. And yeah, those are not glue guys. Those are really good, really great players. I mean, Khalil Mack is a guy that is a borderline Hall of Famer. J.C. Jackson's a guy who's been to, I think, 3 or 4 Pro Bowls. I think 3. Been to 3 Pro Bowls, I believe. So we're talking about players that are in the top 8 to 10. In the case of Mack, probably more like 5 to 7 at their position. So no, those are elite level players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Demetrius, elite level guys can't be glue guys in a team that's full of already individual talent?
No, they cannot. Glue guys, by definition, cannot be guys that are at a certain talent level. And I think, I agree with Bill. Like these 2 guys are still guys that contribute at a high level. The 2 guys you're talking about, and to Bill's point, there's another group, and I haven't updated my list since yesterday, but Bobby Wagner is out there, and they're guys like Bill talked about. They're 27, 28, 31 years old, still got a lot of football, and they're going to sign deals, and we're going to scratch our heads like, wait, what? They're going to do what I do, which is, why didn't the Lions pay that guy, right? Somebody, and Leighton Vander Esch, or Patrick Peterson's only 31 years old, by the way, right? Yep. Somebody's going to sign Patrick Peterson. He's still got football. Rasul Douglas of the Packers. Juju Smith-Schuster, unless he signed today, is 25 years old.
He has not signed yet.
So somebody's going to sign these types of guys, and this is that second wave Bill's talking about, and I'm going to be
welcome to Green Bay, Juju.
Exactly. Why did the Lions sign that guy? So to your point, Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson are not glue guys. They're better than glue guys. That's what he's saying. These guys are still really good football players. The point is, there's a bunch of glue guys out there, 27, 28, 30-year-old glue guys who still want a big bag of money, but teams are going to give them short bags of money or not nearly as much money as they think.
Right.
But they still can play really good football. And you're going to be surprised how much the Stephon Gilmores and Akeem Hickses of the world end up signing for, right? Because they're 31, 32 years old, still football in them, but that's not how this works anymore. The big money has been spent. Wave 2 is going to be different. That's where you're going to see glue guys. And teams like the Chargers are going to still sign other guys. And they're going to fill spots with some of these guys. You're going to think, wow, they added him. And the money was good. That's why this league, like rules the sports world. They have a model that's untouchable. It's ridiculous.
Mr. Scott, what do you think about the addition of Khalil Mack and cornerback J.C. Jackson? Kind of in response to the Russell Wilson signing. All the mobile quarterbacks in the AFC West. What do you think about the signing of the Chargers by these two guys?
Well, I think you guys are an AFC group, and I think as part of this, you're overlooking the elephants in the room, which Mr. Brady, who's all of a sudden decided he's going to come
Oh,
back.
see, I knew it when I sent you that. You did not read that email, Mr. Scott. See, see, I busted you already. See, because if you look on down the line, we're going to be talking about TB12 also. This is a program that has no time limits, unlike our Black Voices. We talk football until we get tired. But anyway, that's a different subject. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But what do you think specifically about the Chargers adding these two guys? I think specifically in response to the Russell Wilson signing.
All good players. I mean, I think that as we said, it is going to be so competitive in that AFC. You've got your Mahomes. You've got, I don't know what your Steelers are going to do. Boy, I tell you, I'm a Russell Wilson fan. And I mean, I have been since college days. I think he's going to bring something to that team. I really do. I think he's going to. And I think they made a really good move. I think finally Elway did something that I think is right by bringing this guy in. So I'm looking for him to make a lot of noise in a very difficult, tough AFC.
In response to your question about my Steelers, yeah, they'll be at the playoffs. They won't be in the playoffs. But anyway,
Trubisky? Well,
yeah. As you can see, I got that down there, way down there. But anyway, what's your thoughts there, Mike?
I will go with Khalil Mack as a glue guy because the last couple of years of Mack, he's been a great player, maybe a Hall of Fame player. I don't know, but I mean, he's not the type of player that you're not just going to dismiss. I think he will get some talk. But the last 3 years, I would imagine he's just been on the slippery slope. So I would say he's a glue guy. J.C. Jackson is not a glue guy. So I'll go 50-50.
Mike always got to start controversy.
Mike, the Raiders, and this was before the show started, but they locked up Max Crosby.
Yep.
And they added Chandler Jones. They got cornerback from your Colts. And they released Corey Littleton. And then we find out that they go out and make a blockbuster trade for Devontae Adams. Mike? Yeah, you want to keep talking about this AFC West?
Yeah, I'm sort of mixed emotions here with the Raiders and the Colts and what they've done, at least today. Rock Grierson was a second-round draft choice 3 years ago.
Temple Tough.
And he was not good. He was not good his first year. He was not good his second year. And then last year, he became the second-round draft choice while they drafted him. Yeah. So to hear that he got traded, I mean, we do need a pass rusher. So to get Yannick Ngakoue out of the deal was solid, but it was just like, man, you just see this guy struggling so much, and then he finally does good, and you need defensive backs. The Colts need defensive backs, and then they ship him off, and you're just like, man, I was just getting behind this guy. So I think it's a good deal overall. It's just hard to see someone that you see struggle and then turn it around and become good. And he's that guy for your team. And then he gets traded and you're just like, whoa, where'd that train come from? And so I have emotions there. I'm really excited about Devontae Adams and Derek Carr pairing. I mean, I grew up not really grew up. I moved to Porterville, which is about 45 minutes south of Fresno. And when I was about 20, and I stayed there for approximately 15, 18 years. And I saw that connection between Carr and Adams over and over and over and over again. And it was just an amazing combination. So I am fired up to see this combination once again. I'm excited for it. Being in California, you're going to probably get a lot of the games. I get Sunday tickets, so watch them anyways. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this reunite of Carr and Adams once again.
Demetrius.
So I like the word you used earlier, like in response. What are you doing? I think the Colts are gonna like Yannick Ngakoue, but in terms of for the Raiders, what they've done, what you see is Mad Max, as he's called, locking him up was a must do. Adding Chandler Jones, you've got quarterbacks in this division. You got to get after them. We know you got Russ, you got Herbert, you got Mahomes. And then you get a guy on the back end who helps you shore up at the corner spot. I liked him. I think to Mike's point, the light bulb came on, right? At some point in his third year, the light bulb came on. So, I mean, it makes sense what they're doing. You see they're paying attention. And then you go get quite possibly the best receiver in the game, who Derek Carr not only knows and familiar with, but likes. This is how you respond. It's like our baseball conversation at the beginning. When the Dodgers said, okay, the Braves win the World Series, we're done playing with you fools. We're going to go get Freddie Freeman, and we're just going to kind of make this a wrap, right? That's what the Raiders are doing. They're saying, we're not just going to roll over and happily finish in fourth. We're going to play these games, too. And you think about that round robin of games in that division next year. How good are those? Get ready for a whole bunch of AFC West Sunday and Monday night games. We're going to see them every week.
Bill, what's your response?
I think Wagner's about to sign.
Oh, wow.
Where?
Yes. So my response to Rock Yassin.
So your response to Max Crosby, Chandler
Raiders,
Jones,
Raiders in general. Yeah, Raiders in general.
Okay. Well, okay. So we were talking earlier about players that are probably Hall of Famers. For those who have not delved into Chandler Jones' numbers, he's already at 107 career sacks, people. He's going to join the 125 sack club before his career is over, and maybe the 150 sack club. That's rarefied air, right? He has quietly had a Hall of Fame career. I think he's tied with Neil Smith, and if you want to sort of count the old unofficial numbers, Ed Too Tall Jones on the career sack list already. And obviously, barring catastrophic injury, will continue. He is a great, not a good, he is a great player. Max Crosby has been facing double teams and teams sliding everything towards him. And no offense to Colin Farrell and whoever else that has been trying to play the other defensive end position for them in the last few years. None of those guys were anywhere close to as good as Max Crosby. Now they have someone who's better than Max Crosby. Max now gets a chance to be the other guy instead of being the guy. So watch for his numbers to go through the roof. You're going to see some production. That defense should be improved dramatically, particularly in getting pressure and getting sacks. And when you are getting more pressure and getting more sacks, you should also get more interceptions. So it should be a rising tide should lift all the boats of that defense. And then obviously, I didn't live in the Fresno area, but I did have a good friend, shout out to my boy Jim Coburn, who was a student at Fresno State during the Derek Carr years. And Derek Carr was played in two different offenses and managed to adjust going from a pro-style offense, what Pat Hill ran for so many years, to this more spread 'em and shred 'em kind of attack they had when DeRuiter came in. But Burrell and who was the other receiver? They had three good receivers on that team.
Yep.
Burrell had a cup of coffee with somebody, and then they had the other kid who was supposed to be the speedster for three, who did nothing in the league.
I don't even know if he was drafted. But
yeah. I think he ended up in Canada, actually. I think he actually ended up in Canada and didn't tear it up there either, quite frankly. But yeah, they had 3 good receivers, only one of which has become Devontae Adams, but the other 2 were really good collegiate receivers. And of course, Derek Carr is the kind of quarterback that, especially at the college level, could make good receivers look great and great receivers unstoppable, as we've already discussed. And Devontae Adams also played with, he knows what it is to play with a great quarterback. I think it's going to help them in so many ways. And as a bonus or whatever, though the volumes for those who are like dynasty holders holding on to Jacobs, while the volume will come down, the production is going to go up a little bit. No more of those 3.6 yards per carry games where he has 27 carries. He's going to be, 87 sturdy yards on 26 carries and 2 concussions. Those days are gone, Jacobs holders. You can celebrate to some extent. So though the volume will come down, he'll probably get more like 19 to 22 touches. He'll be more productive and healthier. So enjoy.
So only you, Mike, and our dynasty owners know what you guys are talking about, but that's fine. Mr. Scott, what do you think about these moves that the Raiders are making, especially this late deal just before we came on the air where they acquired Devontae Adams?
That's another thing that I missed. That they got Devontae Adams. I think that's a tremendous move for them, and I like Carr as a quarterback. That AFC, I'm telling you, this really, you have to like Mahomes. You have to like, in Denver now. I mean, I'm still just watching football right now. I'm still just watching these moves and trying to see where this thing is going, because it's going to be so. I still say Brady's the elephant in the room. I say Brady and Green Bay, as far as quarterbacks, those 2 elephants in the room.
Oh,
I like Carr. I like their coaching. I like. That's my only contribution in that. AFC is just. I throw darts to get a winner in that league, because
okay.
Buffalo is another team I like.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Mr. Scott.
All right.
Russell Wilson or Derek Carr?
Oh, Russell Wilson.
Oh, okay. I just want to know. I just want to know how well you like Carr.
That's the tough part. There's so many good ones, and as Bill was saying, there's so many variables that can happen when this thing comes up. Yeah. But no, Russell Wilson is really. I just see him as superlative.
Yeah. Mike. What's up with your Colts, man?
You can have all my time, by the way. All my time.
I might need it.
Yeah, right. I'm going to take your time when we talk about the Lions. And you can have my time here. Mr. Scott can have my time on the Vikings. I want all the smoke on the Lions. That's how we're doing this tonight.
I like that.
And Bill can talk about everybody.
So, Mike, you spoke about you guys getting Yannick. You didn't talk too much about losing that left tackle, but last I looked on the wire, you still don't have a quarterback. So
that is important.
Talk to me about the Colts, Mike. What's going on?
Okay. So Derek Fisher situation, c'est la vie. He was really good at run blocking. He could get to multiple levels and just smash people when it comes to run blocking. When it came to pass blocking, he was just the opposite. He couldn't pass block for anything. I think he allowed like 10 sacks. It was just awful. So they tried him out for a year. It really didn't work. And he can go. As far as the quarterback situation, I really don't know. It's been so kind of wild where it's like Russell Wilson has a shot to be a Colt. And, of course, that didn't work out right away. He goes to Denver. Then it's like, well, maybe it's Baker Mayfield. And we'll talk about that later. And then it's like, okay, who else? Well, maybe Kirk Cousins. And I'm like, yeah, Kirk Cousins. Bring Kirk Cousins in. He'll be great for this system. No, 1 year deal. He's with Minnesota. So yes, they have no quarterback at this point. I don't know who the heck the quarterback is, but if they start week 1 with Sam Ehlinger, I might as well just leave the house and say, okay, I'm some other team's fan, because I am not going to be dealing with Sam Ehlinger as my quarterback for the Colts. It's done. No way.
Mike, squeeze your ears and say woosah. Woosah, Mike. It's gonna be all right. We're in March, bro. You are at a 9 and we're in March. It's gonna be fine.
I'm freaking out, man. I'm telling you.
Garoppolo's out there. Jameis Winston's out there. There's options. You're going to have a quarterback, and it won't be Sam Ehlinger. I can guarantee you that.
They got Jonathan Taylor. You don't want to waste Jonathan Taylor.
That's true.
Yeah. The Jonathan Taylor is the savior right now. Yes, that is true.
Nope, you're on mute, Bill. We can't hear you, bro.
You'll almost certainly be a quarterback drafted as well.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, there's quarterbacks in the draft. You'll be fine. Sam Ehlinger will not take snaps game 1.
It's good, but that is up in the air too, because and I agree. Sam Ehlinger is not going to be there, but the Carson Wentz trade, they don't have a first round pick.
Right. But this is not the year to be drafting a quarterback in the first year.
Exactly.
True. The outside of probably. I mean, even Malik Willis, who's probably the number 1 quarterback, has some growing pains to do. So, you're probably not starting a quarterback this year.
Garoppolo's your quarterback. He fits. You have Jonathan Taylor, like Mr. Scott said. That's the centerpiece of your offense. You don't need a quarterback to do too much. He's got to turn the hand the ball off. Mostly is what he needs to do. You can get Baker. Baker can do that if you want. Jameis Winston is being undervalued right now. He's in the best shape of his life. He looked really good late last season. I don't know why people are sleeping on Jameis. My point is there's options. There's options. There's options.
I don't know when you talk about Baker. I mean, all he had to do was turn and hand the damn ball to Nick Chubb. That didn't work out.
Exactly.
I'm not a Baker fan. Yeah, I'm not a Baker fan. Yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, Baker Mayfield or Sam Ehlinger. Right?
Well, what if it's that? Let me get my coin out and I'll flip it for you.
Exactly.
Oh man. Okay, Mr. Scott, you guys gave Kirk Cousins $35 million fully guaranteed money.
It's painful. Mr. Scott,
that's the only kind of money he takes. That's the only kind of money K-Baby takes. You know that.
Mr. Scott, you know I'm sucking on lemons as I say this, right?
Kirk Cousins with the Michigan State. That is a smart man. Kirk Cousins with the Michigan State. He knows how to get that money.
That's the whole point of Kirk Cousins. He is a businessman. He has been the greatest businessman in football.
Yep, totally.
In fact, he is now ranked number 2 on my CBI, which is the Sam Bradford Finesse Quarterback Index. He's now number 2, only to Sam Bradford himself.
Right. That's his namesake. Kirk Cousins has manipulated this system better than anybody in the history of the game.
He is a financial guru.
Cash
and actually, when you look at his stats, I mean, his stats are very good.
Yeah.
He's Pro Bowl this year. I mean, his stats are always very good. Very few interceptions.
Yep.
His mobility is the thing that really, he's not today's quarterback with any mobility. I mean, he's strictly got to have a great offensive line, take care of him. We got Delvin Cook. I mean, great receivers.
Yeah.
Is he worth that money? I don't know how he does it. I mean, he did. He Washington. He got all that money from Washington as the franchise player for 2 years. Then he comes to the Vikings and gets this transformational contract that, at this point, what could they do? They have a backup, this gentleman, Kellen Mond, that the previous coach, Mike Zimmer, they asked him, why didn't you play him in the last game? Oh, I've seen him already in practice. Well, So
He
that's
said,
a
"We want to
ringing,
see what you have in Kellen Mond." And yes, he's
that's
like,
a
"Oh, I've seen it."
ringing endorsement of it. So we have no idea really what Kellen Mond can or can't do. He
Oh,
hasn't
yes,
had
you
a
do.
game.
Yes,
Oh,
you, Mr. Scott. Yes, you do.
We
Yes,
know this
you
much.
do.
We know what he can't do. We know
Right.
he cannot
You
win the
know,
trust of Mike
right.
Zimmer.
You know exactly what Kellen Mond is, Mr. Scott. You know. It's that East Lansing degree Kirk Cousins carrying around his back pocket. That man knows what he's doing. That's a smart kid.
Yeah. So I mean, but in the division, I was really hoping that the man in Green Bay would go somewhere and sit down or go somewhere, but he decided to come back for all the money. Other than that, the division should be ours. I mean, I just, the Lions, everybody's made their living on the Lions. And
Whoa.
I'll defer to any further talk on the Lions, but everybody has made their
Give me some water.
coaches have made their living on the Lions over the years. So
Shots fired.
I will wait until you hand me the microphone, Mr. Keaton. I will wait for the microphone.
What about the addition of Hicks to your defense there, Mr. Scott?
very, very good addition.
You talking Jordan Hicks, the linebacker? Is that what we're talking about? Jordan Hicks, the linebacker?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So with the whole new coaching staff, they got rid of my man Andre Patterson, who should have been the defensive coach to me.
Yes.
Because the last few years they made him assistant head defensive coach with Mike Zimmer's son, the co-defense, which made absolutely no sense to me. And Andre's
it
been
makes
there.
sense if you've ever been a father.
Yeah, right.
As far as a fan, I don't know what to think of their defense. They got they made a big signing of this Michael Pierce. I can't remember where they got Michael Pierce to play in the middle of the line. He played like 8 games, was always hurt. And I think they got rid of him. I think they released him recently.
They brought in Ed Donatel to be their defensive coordinator, right?
Yes.
Is there new DC? He plays some 4-3, some 3-4. So the Hicks signing makes sense. He needs more help at linebacker because they're going to do some hybrid scheme. He's always done hybrid schemes, but I like the Hicks signing though.
Mr. Scott, staying in your division here, now that Devontae's gone, what are you guys going to do with Aaron Rodgers? Who's he going to throw the ball to? Is he going to be an MVP without Devontae Adams catching?
Boy, he's been his nookie for quite a while. He's gotten rid of some receivers, so I think the Vikings may be able to make some noise in this division. I mean, I don't see the Bears. Their quarterback situation is in disarray. I'll let my cohort explain about the Lions. I usually count those 2 wins, at the beginning of the year.
Wow.
And have for years. I mean, they made. So I just have I don't have I want to say a love-hate with Cousins, but there's no love. I mean, there's just something about him. It seems so bland. But the numbers, if he's protected, if the receivers stay healthy, Jefferson is outstanding as a receiver. The guy I went to Mankato from my school. I can't. What's the other receiver? I can't call his name. Right.
Adam
Thielen. He doesn't drop anything. Oh man, you talk about sure-handed. And if he can stay healthy, if they keep him, I know they got some salary cap things. They're kind of worried about that. I don't know what they're going to do with that, but I hope they keep him and Jefferson together. That tandem, along with Delvin Cook, offensively, I think they're fine. They've had some problems with offensive line play. I mean, as far as protection, but I'm a little mystified about what they're doing defensively. You have to wait and see. There's still a lot of acquisitions happening.
Mike, what do you think? Aaron Rodgers without Devontae Adams, are the Packers falling back to the pack now?
Yeah, well, as they stand right now, absolutely. Because who do they have there? Alan Lazard, Marquise Valdez Scantling,
Equinese, St.
Randall
Brown. A lot of
Cobb.
guys are three names.
Yeah.
yep, Randall Cobb, Robert Tanyan's coming back off an ACL tear. So they'll have to do something. But at this standpoint, yeah, what is Aaron? I mean, it's throwing to nobody time, and absolutely. Aaron Rodgers is in big trouble until they can get someone, if they get someone.
Well, I think Juju is probably near the top of the list, and they're going to draft one as well.
Yeah.
I said I would have gave him Juju and a bag of Jujus at the same time.
Well, you just open up that can of worms.
Yeah. I mean, come on, Juju, yeah, Juju. What about that other kid? Isn't that Claypool? They could have both in a package. Wrap them up.
Get rid of them all.
Yeah, wrap them up. Put them in it.
Wait, aren't we talking about the Steelers later? Aren't we talking about the Steelers?
Yeah,
Is this way? Well, if this was one of us, you would be like, hey.
Okay, all right. Well, I know you just want to get to talk about your Lions because your Lions are next.
I want to hear that. Yeah, I want to hear that.
And Mr. Scott just put his dirty feet all over the welcome mat. So
I was so nice to him on the other podcast too. I was respectful. I was like, I like this dude. I can't wait for him to come on the Sports Crib.
Lynn Barney is a good friend of mine.
Oh,
Barney is a good friend of mine.
Yeah, good man. Mr. Scott walked into my house, put his feet on my couch like Rick James, and just started grinding his boots into my couch. Oh man!
So Demetrius, you signed DJ Clark,
Yeah.
you cut Flowers,
Yep.
And Williams recommitted. So what's going on?
So with Williams, I think you either mean Tracy Walker, our safety, or you mean Josh Reynolds, the wide receiver we acquired late in the year.
I meant Josh Reynolds. Yeah.
Josh Reynolds, gotcha.
Yeah.
Both good signings. So first of all, I need to bring a little reality to this, and I need to remind you guys of something. In Minnesota, the Vikings beat the Lions on a last-second record-setting field goal. That's how they beat us in Minnesota. And when they came to Detroit, we got our first win against who? The very same Minnesota Vikings. So let's just level set that. We beat them in Detroit, and they beat us on a last-second field goal. Now, all that being said, my team was 3-13-1. You guys know I've always accepted that. I've always said to you guys, we're in a rebuild. We are 2 years away. This year will be better. The team you guys need to worry about is the 2023 Detroit Lions, because we have a GM named Brad Holmes who knows what he's doing. And the last 5 days has just proven it. He signed Tracy Walker, a good young safety, to a nice deal. We brought in DJ Chark on a 1-year, $12 million prove it. You're coming off an injury. So if he balls out, that means that Goff has gotten better and we can re-sign him long term. If he doesn't, it's no harm, no foul. We got $12 million back to our cap and we can sign somebody next year. We have 3 of the top 34 picks this year, 2, 32, and 34. The Matthew Stafford trade set us up very well. We brought back Charles Harris, who came in 2 years, $14 million, solid contract. Brad Holmes is signing real smart deals right now, housekeeping deals. He's not doing big splashy stuff because we're not there yet. We're not ready to go throw $100 million at anybody. We're not good enough. We're still building. We can't buy blinds when we're still building the foundation for our house. I don't know what art we're going to put in the house. I don't know what the lighting fixture is going to look like. We're still laying ground, right? That's just where we are. So I'm fine with where we are, and we're still 2 years away from being relevant, probably 3 years away from being really competitive. And I'm good with that because the dude at the top, Brad Holmes, knows what he's doing. I'm fine with it.
What about the coaching blunders? What about the coaching blunders? Head coaching, but why get rid of Jim Caldwell?
Oh, that's a whole different deal. The reason the Lions are the Lions is for what you just said. Historically, we have had inept guys in the general manager role. That's what I'm talking about. The guy we have now is good. The guy who fired Jim Caldwell is gone. He stood up at the podium and said 9-7 isn't good enough, went back to New England, hired his buddy, and they promptly lost so many games over 4 years, it's hard to explain. The Jim Caldwell firing was a horrendous mistake. Nobody believes that more than me. I like Jim Caldwell as a man, and he had that football team in a good place.
Yes,
He had been to the playoffs twice in 4 years. The other team missed it by a game. He had a good culture. Jim Caldwell's firing was a horrible mistake, and that dude's out of a job now.
I was scared of the Lions then. That's the only time I've been scared of the Lions recently.
They were building then. And the history of the Lions, we're not cursed. There's nothing special about it. We have never had a competent person in the role of GM or principal executive, talent evaluator, until 14 months ago when they hired Brad Holmes.
You sure Matt Millen wasn't great?
Yeah, Matt Millen was something less than great. I don't want to. We're after dark. I could go way off right now. We're after dark. I could tell you how I feel about Matt Millen. And he set my organization back a decade. We're still paying for some Matt Millen sins. Well, maybe not now. It's been a while. We paid for those sins for 5 or 6 years, man. And that's what it was. There's a list of bad execs that have run my favorite football team my entire life. I was born in 1969. I'm telling you, we've never had a competent executive running our team for a number of reasons. The guy who took over 14 months ago is a brilliant guy. I don't say that because he's a black guy. He happens to be black, but he's great. He's really smart. He did a great thing with the Rams. The team that just won the Super Bowl had 22 drafted players. He was their chief talent evaluator until last year. He had a lot to do with 17 or 18 of the players on the current Super Bowl champs. I'm excited about where we're going to be in 3 years, even in 2 years. I'm not worried about that. We're going to beat Minnesota again this year, though. I know that. Because I'm making some phone calls.
We'll see about that. We'll see.
All right, Bill, Tom Brady returns.
Once again, my shock face.
I believe you called that. Did you not call that, Bill? When he announced it? I'm pretty sure you said this isn't real.
Yeah.
So I want to set the scene for you.
Well, hold on. Tom Brady comes back. The Bucs sign Gage from the Falcons.
Yep.
They also get a guard, Shaq Mason. Yep. They say there's a possible Julio Jones sighting, but I would rather see Jarvis Landry in there, but we'll see how that works out. But, Bill, what's the odds of Tom and Bruce getting back to the Super Bowl?
I mean, I'll say 40%. And that's probably being a little optimistic. A lot went right for this team in the year that they won it all.
Right.
A lot went right for them. And they're going to lose a few players off of this last team, obviously. Some of them have already gone, right? So they'll still have Mike Evans, who I think is really sort of the key to everything for them on offense. Gronkowski's probably gone. A lot of the guys.
They re-signed Godwin.
Yeah, well, that was the most important of their players to re-sign, but they've lost Ali Marpet, who to retirement, and they lost Ryan Jensen to money. Which makes sense. He may not have gone to Michigan State, but he knows math. So he was able to figure out that this amount is more than that amount. They certainly do have still a very good roster, but a lot of the teams around them have also improved. So I am expecting, it's not impossible. I just think that there'll be some other teams that will have gained ground on them. I'll put it that way. And of course, the Rams haven't gone anywhere the last I checked. So I don't think they're going to win at all.
What do you think, Mr. Scott?
I think
Tom's your guy.
I know. Well, I mean, he wins, and I think he's a lot of folks' guys. I think players like playing with Tom Brady because he gets people paid. I mean, you go deep in the playoffs and you get money, and so I think there are going to be guys maybe like in New England. There were guys that there seemed to be interchangeable. There was really no star running back. There was really, other than Randy Moss, I remember when he had that just otherworldly year, they just had parts that could fit in around Brady. And I think that's what Tampa's doing. And I think people want to play with him because he gets people paid.
Yep.
But now at his age, I mean, I think he's, uh, I, I think he's probably just a hit away from going back into retirement. So I think there's a lot of knives waiting for him, but I do think that people want to play for him and that they'll be able to put a decent team around him and they're going to be something to deal with. Brady has something. I don't know what it is. But it seems to work wherever he goes.
Demetrius, Tom Brady comes back to make $10 million. Really? I mean, come on. It's got to be the love of football. I mean,
Or
Giselle,
more to the point.
Giselle makes she pays that much in taxes. I mean,
right, but more to the point. As I said before, he sat in that beautiful house with his beautiful Brazilian smoked bottle wife and his beautiful children, and looked around and said, "This sucks."
I need to go get hit. Yeah. So I won't do my whole speech about how Giselle supplements the salary cap and it's unfair. I'm not going to do that because Tom Brady is still one of the 5 best quarterbacks, and he's like 29th in pay or 24th in pay, some ridiculous number. That's not really fair. Now, the truth is, I don't think they're the team to beat. I think that somebody really smart once said, Father Time is undefeated. And then LeVar Ball said, never lost. So, at some point, Rob Gronkowski's knees are going to call it a day. At some point, like, he gets guys paid. Mr. Scott has never been more right about anything. You go play there, you win games, you compete for a championship, and you cash checks. And it's in Tampa, Florida. That ain't a bad gig at all, right? You just got to get Tom to give you that phone call. Thing is, Bill said it. Rams aren't going anywhere. They still have Aaron Donald. They still have my favorite quarterback. The Rams aren't going there. And today they acquired, help me out, guys, the receiver, Allen Robinson. Yep. The Rams acquired Allen Robinson earlier.
They got A-Rob.
They're not going anywhere. They're still a really good football team. Jalen Ramsey can still play corner, right? So the Rams aren't going to, Green Bay probably took a step back. I imagine they did. But also there's a guy out there who hasn't decided what team he's playing for yet. And if he goes to, say, New Orleans, we got to talk about them if Deshaun Watson, I don't know how much he plays. But the road for Tampa, they're in the mix, of course. I still like the Rams. But Tampa's in the mix. I don't know if Green Bay goes out and signs Juju and drafts, Chris Olave, then Green Bay's wide receiver room just got better, and they're still somebody to think about. And age will eventually catch up. Maybe not with the dude eating all the avocados and strawberries, but the rest of the team is eventually going to get old. Tom Brady will never age. I'm convinced he was at the crossroads playing a guitar and met the devil and made a deal. I like Tom Brady as a team. I think Tampa got exposed and they could be beat.
What's your thoughts on that, Mike? I mean, hey, if you go 2 rounds, that's 2 extra checks. But what's your thoughts on this Tampa Bay team?
I think they're a playoff team with Tom Brady. Even as we're mentioning with the Super Bowl, they played a New Orleans Saints team that was pretty much beating them for most of the game, and then Drew Brees just couldn't do it anymore, and he turned over the ball too much, and that's actually what pushed Tampa Bay past the Saints in that playoff game. If Drew Brees was the Drew Brees that we know Drew Brees is, I don't think Tampa Bay wins that game. So they got pretty lucky even going to the Super Bowl. But with that said, I do believe they're a playoff team. Super Bowl team? No, I just think there's way too many tough teams in not only their division, but other divisions as well.
Mike, we kind of touched on it here and there, but let's talk about Deshaun Watson. He, of course, beat his criminal charges. Grand jury refused to indict him, but he still has 10 civil cases to deal with. He still has a possible suspension coming from the league. But it seems like we're down to 2 teams, the Saints or the Falcons. Mike, do you think that the Falcons are ready to move on from Matty Ice to get Deshaun Watson, even though there might be some bench time involved here?
Yes, and I don't know if that's just because I'm hoping for it, because after the dust has settled with the free agency, I am a huge Matty Ice guy.
Ice and Indy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm hoping very much so that is the case. I'm also hoping that Deshaun Watson gets a huge suspension. The guy, as much as I don't like talking about Aaron Rodgers, I think I don't like talking about Deshaun Watson even more, because the guy's just a straight up criminal. So with that said, I'm expecting a suspension from the league. How many games? I think maybe 8 at the most, but it might be even less than that.
I think it'll be 6. Look for 6.
Yeah, I can really lean my hat on 6 games, and then he'll be cleared and everybody forget about what he did, and he'll move on, and everybody else will move on. And, as the story continues to evolve with football and people, not doing the right thing and getting chance after chance and people forgetting what they've done in their previous, during their lives. And Ben Roethlisberger is a great example of that, where people were just like, oh yeah, totally forgot about Ben Roethlisberger and his criminal activity. So yeah, it's going to take me a while to get over this Deshaun Watson thing, but for what I believe, 6 games, 6 to 8 games is probably the correct amount.
What do you think there, Mr. Scott? Deshaun Watson in Atlanta, no masseuse clause?
Well, I'm sure he'll be in a playpen in Atlanta, for
Right.
activity distractions that he seems to like. I never really understood that deal with him in Houston. I never really all of a sudden he just wanted out. Maybe he knew this legal stuff was coming. Maybe he knew somebody. I just don't understand why all of a sudden he took such a strong stance about being out of there. I actually have a friend that has been part of that Houston organization, Romeo Crennel.
Oh, you know Rack?
And Romeo's sister used to live in my apartment building. It was his twin sister, and her name was Juliet.
Nice.
And so I knew him. Matter of fact,
that's really frightening to think of Roman Camille with a twin sister. But go ahead.
Well,
she was beautiful.
Don't assume, bro. Yeah,
she was beautiful. I'm telling you. Woo. She was a wonderful, wonderful woman. Passed away, got a disease. It's kind of sad, but no, I don't know. Watson is obviously just a true talent. I mean, really, a true talent. But Atlanta, boy, I like the quarterback they have. I mean, I think if they had really built around that quarterback, Atlanta really could have been a real force. So I don't know what would they do with Matty Ice then.
35 to 3, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do with him, but that's another story. Anyway.
Well, it was 28 to 3 if you're trying to be accurate.
28, 35.
You gotta put that on Matty Ice, though. That's play calling. That was play calling. That was horrible
play calling. It was bad.
And defense, right? I'm gonna put that on Ice.
Of course. Hey, I mean, the only play calling that we've seen worse is Pete Carroll. But
right.
Anyway, that's another story for another sports crib. What do you think, Demetrius?
I go back to Mr. Scott and Mike. You don't have a quarterback issue. Why did we all of a sudden decide we have a pressing need to go get Deshaun? Is he a talent? Yeah. I am not one who's afraid to say I don't get past what he did. I'm just that kind of dude who has a sister and who has nieces and am disgusted by his actions, so much so that had the Lions tried to acquire him, I would have been in a bad place. I would not have wanted that. Because I you can call me judgmental, call me whatever. I'm not sure he's not just a dirtbag, but he's a dirtbag that can play football, so somebody's going to cut him checks. I agree with Mr. Scott. If they do this, they're going to have to give up a lot to get him, and they have Matty Ice. I presume your cap's not going to support both of them, so you must have something in place to trade Matt Ryan already. There's probably somebody in Indianapolis, Indiana, who's on speed dial waiting, right? But I don't know if your need wasn't at quarterback. Your weakness, you are addressing a position of strength here. So I don't know if I get it. I agree with Mr. Scott. Is Atlanta, Georgia?
Yeah.
Hot Atlanta? Chocolate City? All the nicknames? Is that where you want Deshaun Watson living? Right? There's so much to this story that I find fascinating. But it is mostly that Atlanta, who doesn't seem to have a quarterback issue, is creating this. And then I think Indy gets Matt Ice on the cheap. I don't get it. And that Super Bowl wasn't Matty Ice's fault, by the way. But yeah, this one strikes me. I know Atlanta's home. So what happened is somebody said he's from Atlanta. He'd come here, and they thought, okay, we can get Deshaun Watson. Let's do whatever we have to do. I don't think it's a smart business move. If you get past everything off the field, which I can't, he's an incredible talent, and you're going to lose him for 6 games. But it's going to cost you a lot, and then you got to find a way to get rid of Matt Ryan. And you're not going to get value because everybody's going to know, you're giving him away on the cheap.
Yeah.
Bill, when you look at the Saints, they've been clearing cap space like a mug. I mean, last I looked, they had over $20 million in cap space.
Yeah.
They got to get more.
And they have a need, but what do you think is the most likely landing space here? New Orleans or Atlanta?
Well, I'm gonna say this way: the place where I would go if it were up to me, or if I were advising him, would be New Orleans. But I think the front runner is Atlanta. I think that one is it's one of the few teams for which he would waive his no trade clause. That's the first thing. The NTC means that unless it's a place where he says I'll go there, then there is no deal. So that's the first thing. It's one of the places for which he would waive the no trade clause. And if you have a list of essentially just 2 teams really at this point where he would agree to go, then it's now a 2-horse race and you're trying to get the best package or whatever. The thing about New Orleans, and yes, they have been clearing cap space in nobody's business, but that is still more robbing of Peter to pay Paul. I mean, there is still, it's not like they opened up, it's not like when you are going through the laundry and you find money in some jeans. It's not that. It is not that. They didn't suddenly just, we forgot we had this cap space we weren't using. We left it in the broom closet. No, it's not that. They still are just converting parts of salary to bonuses and prorating money and slapping on voidable years. And that's cool.
Yeah, they're putting their wife's jewelry on eBay. That's what they're doing. That's how they're creating money.
Right. That's cool, but that's not sustainable. So if Deshaun Watson is thinking of a long-term place to spend the next, 5-10 years. I mean, however, I don't know how. I mean, if he wants to finish his career someplace,
he's 26.
Right. That's my point. That's my point.
All? Wow.
Yeah, he's only 26.
Yeah, right. That's my point. I mean, he will turn 26. He is. Remember, when he declared for the draft, he was barely 21 years old.
Yeah.
So yes, he has a lot of football ahead of him. So if he's thinking about a place where, they won't be blowing it all up again 3 years from now, because if they can somehow keep it together for 3 years in New Orleans, I mean, it's like I said, the bill still comes due. At some point, the waiter comes around and says, "Cash check or charge, sir." I mean, at some point, they will have to pay. They will have to. I mean, they've already blown it up a little bit and they kind of held it together, but it's still a temporary thing. The center will not hold.
Yeah.
So Atlanta is the better long-term solution. If you want to be someplace for several years, and they aren't hamstrung the same kind of way.
Right.
But they also don't have a team that's quite as ready to win immediately. So it comes down to, and because he's such a young guy, I think he's going to look long-term. And then obviously he's, a native to the area. So, if I were leaning slightly, I'd lean slightly Atlanta. I personally, just because I believe more in the organization, would probably look at New Orleans.
The Bills actually signed Von Miller.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hell of a contract. I don't think anybody thinks that this contract.
Oh, he's
be
not.
for
He's not going to
Bill,
play. He's not going
but
to play for 6 years for them. No, I mean, it's
no,
Make
no.
it happen.
But that 34 mil signing bonus looks pretty good.
Right.
What's your thoughts on what this does to the Bills? They've given Cole Beasley his release. What's your thoughts on the Bills?
Sure. So the Bills have an interesting situation because they are probably still, prohibitive favorites to win their division, and probably would have been that without Von Miller, quite frankly. But the addition of Von Miller is all about the teams they're going to see in the playoffs, right? They're not looking at Tua and thinking, man, we need to have Von Miller. They're not looking at Zach Wilson and thinking, man, we got to get Von Miller, or even Mac Jones, right? They feel like, whether they say it or not, this is our division for the next several years. But in the playoffs, you're going to see Patrick LeVon Mahomes. You're going to see,
Russ.
Russ. No, not right. Oh, and Justin Herbert and Derek Carr. I mean, there's a lot of
Joe Burrow. Yeah.
In the AFC is loaded with good young quarterbacks, guys who are 30 and less. Russ is a little over 30, but the rest of those guys are right at 30 or less for the most part. They're all good athletes. They all have strong arms. And it's a tall order. I mean, winning the division is the easy part to some extent for them, and then it gets harder. So yeah, that's what that's about.
Demetrius, what's your thoughts?
I'm always impressed with how teams manipulate salary cap. right. So you sign them, and the agent gets to come out and flex. Go, look, 6 years, $51 million. The reality is that's a 3-year deal, 2-year deal maybe.
Right.
He gets the bag with $34 million in it. They get to spread that out over their cap as $5.4 million instead of $8.5 million, which is what it would sound like. Right. All the smoke and mirrors and trickery. He gives them immediate, legitimate pass rush capability in a conference, as Bill said, where you're going to have to beat multiple teams containing either Burrow, Herbert, Russ, Mahomes. You're going to have to beat one of these guys, maybe more than one of these guys. Having instant pass rush capability, and Josh Allen is also on that line, on that defense. The East Division is not their goal. Buffalo isn't sitting going, how can we put up an East Division championship banner? That's not what they want. And this is what you do when you're a good team. This is what 3 years from now I want the Lions to be doing. We're almost there. We got to go get that guy that puts us there, right? So that we can beat Minnesota twice and hang up a banner in front of Mr. Scott's house. No, I'm kidding. I'm not actually that petty. I'm just kidding. This is what a good team who's right there recognizes.
Barry Sanders ain't coming back.
So I think it's a smart move, Buffalo. The money is not as the money's great. $34 million is $34 million, but they did it smart. The last 3 of those years is probably voidable or a team option or something where they can get out of it. He gets the $34 million whether he plays 2 or 6. So it's good for everybody. And his agent gets to flex and says, I got a 32-year-old dude, $51 million. So I think it works for everybody.
What's your thoughts on Von Miller and going to the Bills, Mr. Scott?
I think it's a good move. I mean, I think they were close, and I think maybe that move defensively kind of puts them over the edge. They got my man Diggs, who kind of slowed down a little bit towards the middle of the year. He wasn't as explosive. I don't know what that was about, but as I say, the contract, how they move this analytics and all these kind of things that are under the radar moves that we don't really see, sleight of hand type things. I think they made a great move. I think he's a great player, and that's a team I think they're on the cusp.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm also interested in seeing how that's structured because we all pretty much agree that that's way too long for Von Miller. and I imagine there's some kind of out with that. But
There is, yeah.
I would think so. But it makes the great defense better. I think as I was talking about earlier with the Rams kind of copying, let's bring over Von Miller, just like the Rams did, and we already have the defense set up, and he can make that one, big jump for everybody for this defense, so we don't lose to Kansas City again. So I think that's pretty much why they paid him, and they're just like, okay, hey, we all know you're not going to make those 6 years, so here's 34 just in guaranteed, because you deserve what you're getting, because we all know we're not going to max out that contract for you.
Right.
Mike, the Clowns get Amari Cooper. The Cowboys signed Michael Gallup for 5 years. Did the Clowns actually get the best of this deal of Jerry Jones, Mike?
Okay, so Michael Gallup to me is as we were talking maybe dynasty earlier, Michael Gallup is that dynasty guy. Unfortunately, he did get hurt. I think it was an ACL or Achilles. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe one of you gentlemen know. But he's coming back this year, and we'll see how he responds to that injury. If he responds well, then the winner goes to Dallas. To me, Amari Cooper has never really grown to the wide receiver that we saw with him in Alabama, and he's always been a great route runner, so you can't knock that. But he never really fully got better with the drops. He never really fully did exploit more of that route running to make him be more productive on the field. He's always sort of just been a great route runner, and he's done some great things here and there, but has never been consistent with it. And unfortunately, Jerry Jeudy's is sort of another example. I mean, Alabama again, and great route running, but we know the talent is there. He just needs to maximize that. And Amari Cooper never really did. He's a good receiver, but great one, no.
Demetrius, that guy that throws the ball for Dallas, he never had a 400-yard game until he acquired Amari Cooper.
Yep.
Your thoughts? I mean, I think we're throwing a little dirt here on Amari, even though I'm,
No, Mike's ass is throwing dirt on Amari.
I'm definitely going to throw dirt on him all season because he's a clown, but that's a different story. But go ahead.
Yeah, it is a rare occasion where I disagree with Mike. Gallup tore his ACL. You're right. I believe Amari Cooper, you're talking about expectation. I think when you look at Amari Cooper's production, he's a solid, productive NFL receiver. If you thought Amari Cooper was going to come into this league and have the impact of like Justin Jefferson, change it. But Justin Jefferson is a unique build, right? His size and Justin Jefferson can do everything, right? You have guys that just have a different kind of impact. I thought Amari Cooper was going to come into this league, be a solid, consistent NFL receiver. I think he did it in Oakland. I think, to James's point, he made Dallas better. So I'm not saying where's Amari Cooper on the grand scale of receivers in the league. You rank him where you want. I mean, but I think as guys like him and Stephon Diggs that teams sleep on, and you don't realize route running, getting open, and making the other team commit a safety, or even more than on game day, on Wednesday afternoon in the film room. They're like, we got to know what Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper, those guys, what they're doing. Not the biggest guy, can't do 50-50 balls, that kind of stuff. I would have loved if the Lions would have acquired Amari Cooper. That's the best thing I can say. Like for me, that's the thing. I think Amari Cooper's just solid. I think in the right offense, he's 75, 80 catches, around 1,000 yards, 6-7 touchdowns, and every team in the league needs that. Every team in the league, well, not needs it. Minnesota doesn't need it, right? They got Thielen and Jefferson. There are teams who don't need it, but most teams in the league wouldn't mind having that guy. A good in the locker room, doesn't appear to be a troublemaker, knucklehead, any of that stuff. I think he's just solid. But I think coming from Alabama, and the expectations were higher for some people, Amari Cooper's a disappointment. I'm just not one of those people. I'm not. I think Amari Cooper's a fine receiver, but I think he just went to Cleveland, so it doesn't matter. All that being said, he just got traded to Cleveland, so I don't know if it matters anymore.
Yeah, now his career is really going to go.
Right. I don't know if it matters. Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. That's fair. And yeah, I think a lot of my expectations was for him to be better than what he was, and yours wasn't. So that's completely fair. He fulfilled your expectations and didn't do mine. But exactly. I can no problem with that.
What's your thoughts on Amari Cooper, Mr. Scott? And did Jerry Jones actually lose in this deal?
Well, the Cowboys, again, they're always an interesting thing to me. And Dak Prescott, for one, is an interesting case with me. Sometimes I think he's great. And I think that, that he's a great quarterback, but then other times it just comes up, he can't finish the game or something. I mean, he's really Amari. Well, I agree with what others have said. I mean, he's a very good receiver. But you kind of thought he would come out and be kind of a Moss-like receiver, and I just haven't really seen that. And it could be, the quarterback that he's been playing with too. I mean, that's. I'm so on the fence with Dak because I have a good friend that just can't stand him and tells me that he's terrible. But I don't see him that way. I mean, I see him as potentially being a very good quarterback. And I don't even think Jerry Jones really wanted Dak. I think at the time of drafting, I think there was another quarterback. I can't remember who it was that he actually wanted, but he couldn't get. So they said, okay, we'll try him. And he started out well, but it's just something about him. I can't put my finger on it. But I just see him being a championship, or at least he hasn't risen to it yet.
Bill, what's your thoughts? I haven't seen this great Dak that Mr. Scott talked about. I've seen good Dak, and I've seen really bad Dak. Haven't seen great Dak, but maybe that's just me. What's your thoughts on Amari Cooper there, Bill?
Yeah, well, so in a recently completed mock draft, I made a deal to bring him to the Chargers, right? So the Chargers would have then had Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Mr. Cooper. They'd be hanging with Mr. Cooper at that
best
point.
Receiver room in the league. Is what you're saying, basically.
They would certainly be in the fight, right?
Right,
So
Nice.
that's the idea. And what he has talked about, the arms race that the AFC West has become, I wanted to keep up with that. So I was willing to part with a fairly early draft pick to make that happen. But in the real world, he is a guy who's a mid-career player who still has enough speed to run away from almost everybody but a handful of players in the league when he's running in a straight line. He's a very good route runner. He's got good hands. Somebody said something about Randy Moss. I think the better comparison for him is a guy like Tim Brown, both in the way he plays and even his size and speed. He's more like the Raiders' Tim Brown than he is like most other receivers you're likely to name. And Tim Brown had a Hall of Fame career, but he wasn't a guy that maybe people talked about the same way they talked about a guy like Randy Moss that, took over everybody's brain when he shows up. He's not that kind of player. But is he a kind of guy that could have a chance to be a super productive, number one, at least in Cleveland, a number one receiver for, he'll probably won't be there more than 4 years, but if he's there 4 years, he could literally lead the team in receiving all 4 years. That's the kind of player he is. Very complete, can do everything at a high level. So yeah, it's a good acquisition. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to let you add this from Mr. Scott, because Baker bid goodbye to Cleveland. And on his social media, but Watson isn't coming. Now today, Baker has decided that he wants to be traded, and the clowns are saying, "Oh no, buddy, you getting in this clown car with the rest of us." What's your thoughts here, Mr. Scott?
Well, I mean, I don't think Baker has this panache to call shots. He hasn't really he hasn't really showed he's that kind of quarterback or he's that guy. So, I mean, I think he probably needs to he's got a starting job in Cleveland, needs to show he can stay healthy and needs to show he can get the job done. I mean, he can try to talk his way out, but I don't think that he has the status to really say, okay, well, I'm out and I'm going here. I want to go there. I think he needs to go put his helmet on and put his strap on and get down to work with his team. I don't see him. I mean, holding out, would that make any sense for him to do that? I don't think so. I mean, I think he's got a team. They want him to be the starter, franchise guy. I don't know about their dalliance with Watson. I'm not sure how that came into play or where that started, but I don't even think that was even a realistic.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on, Mr. Scott. When you have a private jet take your general manager down to talk to a player, there might be a little concern there, just a little.
Yeah,
this is where it came from. It wasn't like Baker put in a call and said, hey, why don't you guys consider Watson? But anyway. Go ahead, Demetrius.
Because I think Mr. Scott's absolutely right. All that Minnesota Detroit crap from earlier, I'm gonna set it aside. He's absolutely right now. Who the hell are you, Baker Mayfield? What the hell have you done that you're gonna say I want you to trade? What? Why do you think there's people lined up to trade for you? Now, I think your point is they hurt his feelings by discussing Deshaun Watson. Guess what, bro? This is a business. You're a grown man. You got to go do your job because you don't have the panache. I think is the word he used, and I love that word. That's the exact word. You have not earned it. You don't have the equity. You don't have the clout. Pick your word. You haven't done enough because you're just Baker Mayfield. And I know for you that's a big deal. But guess what? You haven't done enough to be insulted that we considered Deshaun Watson. Because in every world, to everyone without the last name Mayfield, Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback. So, yeah, did the clowns handle it in typical clown fashion? Of course, because we all know there was never any real chance Deshaun Watson was going to Cleveland, Ohio to play football. How they didn't know that is bizarre. But okay, I get it. It's 2022. Right now in 2022, what you do, you get up in your feelings. And so you go to your social media and you put out a goodbye post to the city. Thanks for all you've done. Your ass ain't going nowhere. You are under contract. You will work for us or you will not get paid. And you're not good enough. You're going to hold out? Yeah, have fun with that. Because mama like them checks. Mama like them checks. You're not getting a check today? What? And you're not good enough to demand to be traded. There aren't going to be teams flying jets to pick your ass up in Cleveland to come and get you to come to Indianapolis. Look, Mike's whole face cringed earlier when I talked about that. Mike don't want him in Indy. Nobody wants him. And plus, by the way, Garoppolo is still out there to be had. Jameis is still out there to be had. If Deshaun goes to Atlanta, Matty Ice is out there to be had. You ain't even in the top three. Who are you to come out and demand a trade? I think Mr. Scott nailed it. You're just Baker Mayfield. You need to recognize that and sit your ass down. Put your helmet on, go to work. Because what you could do is look at this like us old heads would. I'm just going to go work my ass off, have a great season, and then next year somebody will give me a bag of money instead of getting on social media and getting all up in your feelings. I'm just going to go work. I'm just going to go work hard, and I'm going to earn that bag of money. You don't have the panache. I'm going to make a shirt. Baker, you don't have the panache, bro. You don't. That's what this is.
Mike, what do you think of Baker's latest rendition of a Kenny G song?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he got a little disrespected, but I mean, since he's been a Cleveland Brown, he just never knows how to handle himself. I don't know if he's trying to be, okay, I'm just going to take a strong stand and if people will respect me because I'm taking this strong stand or what, like with reporters and it's just so many different times where he says the wrong thing and maybe he's trying to be a leader, but he doesn't come across that way. And to me, it was just like a 5-year-old fit. and the parents is watching him just melt down, the parents being the owners and just watching him melt down, then he stops, looks at the parents like, can I have it now? And the parents just shake their head, no, sorry. and it's just one of those things where it's, yeah, we're not trading you, sorry. And so, yeah, I think Baker Mayfield has not only failed as a quarterback, but he's also failed as a leader. As try as he might, but he needs to go on.
Bill, is this the point where the colonel gives the letter to the first sergeant for you as an officer?
He loves to make these military references. Mike and I are sitting here. He and Bill are having inside military references. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, to put it in layman's terms, is this where you get that yellow slip from the boss? You know,
he wants a yellow slip, though. That's the thing.
Well, he thought he was getting one, but the boss says, "Well, you know what? We still got this one slot to fill that's going to Afghanistan this week. Maybe you should pack your bags." But what do you think, Bill? I mean, is this a good analogy here? I mean, you know, the front office is the one that dictates where you go.
Here's the analogy I'm going to give you. Okay, say you've been married for about 6-7 years.
Oh boy!
And you're trying to spice things up, so you're go on like one of those retreats, whatever, and there's like a timeshare, and timeshares usually say like, hey, you come and see our presentation, you get a voucher that covers your meals and such, and you could take this voucher and you can go to medieval times and have a flagon of meat and a giant turkey leg. All you do is sit through this little PowerPoint and everything. And while you're there, right, your wife's still attractive to you, but you've reached a point in your marriage where, you notice when someone else is even more attractive. And so, the salesperson who's tried to close the deal is very attractive. And, she's sitting very close and leaning forward and saying a lot of exciting things and talking about what a great time you're going to have at this timeshare. And then at some point you realize that, oh, I think I might feel her foot on my leg. So you slip your shoe off, and now you've got your foot on her leg under the table.
What's happening right now?
Where we going, Bill?
What's happening right now?
So the problem is, at some point, your wife notices what's going on, right? And it turns out that the timeshare isn't the great deal you thought it was anyway, and you can't really afford it. So now you have a very difficult drive home.
Yeah, you think?
Right? Can you still make it work? Of course you can. You've been married for a while, right? You own stuff together. You're paying on a house together, right? You have a mortgage, right? So will you probably have to sleep on the couch for a while? Probably.
On that couch in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
All right, great job. Bill went deep after dark. I respect your game, Bill. You had me worried. You had me worried for a minute.
Yeah,
I think we should go on right now. So
yeah, but sometimes you don't end up signing up for the timeshare, right?
You were never getting that timeshare.
Well, let's move on, Bill. Let's talk about the Ratbirds. Now, Mr. Smith, he decided not to take that contract, but they did add safety Marcus Williams, and they did add offensive tackle Malcolm Moses. But Bill, you and I talk about safeties, cornerbacks, secondaries an awful lot. Now, in the last 3 years, the Ravens have spent a total of $108 million in guaranteed money on their secondary.
Yep.
Bill, should they have spread that money around a little bit?
Okay, I'm going to answer this two ways. I mean, the obvious answer is yes, but I'm going to go at it this way. Their team is built a little differently than almost every other team in the NFL. They still have an elite level quarterback on his rookie deal. That is essentially what every team is trying to do, right? I mean, you want to have an elite quarterback on his rookie deal like that. When you say to when you're having that TED talk, that seminar as a GM, and they say, "Hey, what's the secret to success?" Oh, have an elite quarterback on his rookie deal. When you're walking back and forth with that headset on, that's what you're saying to all those people who are sitting out in the audience at that How to Be a Great GM seminar. So they are in a position where they can do some things. Should they probably give a little more love to their offensive line? I would do that. I would address that. I would want to get a little something done there. I think that they could add more quality depth to their pass rushing rotation also. They're not awful. They're not bad, but there's not that guy who's that guy, right? That's where I would have been trying to get, hey, as we just talked about earlier, guys like Chandler Jones and Von Miller don't hit the market all the time. Like there's not that you may not have an opportunity next year to get somebody who's that good. Those guys are not on the market often. So that's where I would have gone. I think that it's a little easier to find a good to very good corner and a good to very good safety in almost any year of free agency. Elite level pass rushers, man. There's a lot of things GMs would do to get one of those guys. Yeah, that's a destiny objective. That's the thing you got to check off. If you're trying to win it all, I mean, once again, we just talked about the Rams, right? What are the Rams constantly trying to add to their team? No matter how many of them they have, they're always trying to add more guys and get pressure on the quarterback. You can never have too many. So, yes, these are good players. The players they added will help, but not as much as a guy like Chandler Jones or Von Miller would
have. Mr. Scott, what do you think? $108 million in the secondary. You think that money could have been, hindsight is, 100%. But
yeah. I mean, I agree with Bill. Their team is somewhat different. I mean, I watched them several times and tried to follow them. I have a friend out in Baltimore. I mean, and they would have I watched one game where they had looks like, I think he was a defensive lineman. They put him in the backfield. He weighed like 370 pounds or something. I mean, it's like, and then their defense looked really good. They stole a guy from the Vikings. He has one of those names I can't really pronounce. And he had the year before when they traded him to Baltimore, he led the team in sacks after about 6 games. And at the end of the year, he had more sacks still than the whole team had. He led the team in sacks still at the end of the year. So, yeah, it's a lot of money to put in one particular area. So I don't know really what they're doing with that. I mean, what was it? Offensive tackle?
They got an offensive tackle and they added a safety.
And a safety. Yeah, a lot of money. And I agree with Bill. You can find a safety. You can find defensive backs. I don't know if you have to lock them up with that kind of money.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, especially when you have some quarterback named Lamar Jackson and who still doesn't have a contract. And we've talked about him, but I'm sure he's going to get paid. And when you're, doing those kind of things, this is a time where it's like, well, it's too bad you didn't have, as you mentioned, good enough hindsight. So that's my point of view is when these things come due and you're like, what do we do? Well, you could have done something back then.
What are your thoughts there, Demetrius?
I can't really argue with anything anyone said, but I also have to remind us, we have spent the bulk of this podcast talking about Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, if you can't go get the elite pass rushers, what's the next best option? Bolster our secondary. That's what they're trying to do. I'm not suggesting it's right. In fact, I might be saying it's wrong. but I think I get what they're trying to do. What they're saying is, if we can't get Chandler Jones to come here, if we can't go out and acquire Von Miller or someone else to bolster our pass rush, let's cover. Let's be good on the back end. I would not have implemented that strategy, but I think you could see a piece of logic from them that says, like most of our conversation tonight, the AFC is loaded with good young quarterbacks, good offenses. The West is a division full of them because I do actually like Derek Carr. I guess what they're trying to do, and I don't know if it's a Trubisky scare. It's certainly not a Baker Mayfield scare. That Trubisky thing was just a joke, Mr. King. I'm sure Trubisky will be fine. But right. But I get that they're trying something to deal with the weapons in their conference. I don't know if it's the right move, but I guess I can kind of see if you can't get those pass rushers, you better be strong on the back end. You better be. If you can't get to the quarterback, you better be strong back there.
Staying with you, Demetrius, the Bungles, they've shored up their offensive line for Burrows. They added guard Alex Kappa, 4 years, $40 million. They added a center, Ted Casares,
Karras.
3 years, $18 million. All these guys are high risk, low reward. Low risk, high reward guys. What's your thoughts on the Bengals move there, Demetrius?
Smart because you can't afford to give out big money deals to these guys right now. Why is that? Because you have a quarterback that's going to come due, and right after him, Jamar Chase is going to come due. You see the horizon where you're going to have to spend money. So what you want to do is sign these value deals, guys you can get within this window. You've got a window of 2 more years and potentially a tag year for Burrow if you want to go that route, where you're going to try and get back there. You have to be incredibly smart with your money now, because if you don't, when the chickens always come home to roost, right? When they show up, when you see the chickens coming up the road, and you got to give Burrow a giant bag of money, and the next year you got to get a suitcase for Jamar Chase as well. You can't afford to sign. You just have to gut your roster. So what you're doing is you're doing this very smart, strategic, preemptive cap management moves. These guys are solid players. They're upgrades because you're addressing your weakness, but the numbers we're talking about are fine. Whether it's the guaranteed money on Kappa or 10 a year, these are manageable cap numbers that don't put you into a situation where you either can't give the big bag to the guys you need to. Maybe even they got to pay T. Higgins. We'll see. Or you have to gut your roster when that time comes, because the chickens always come home to roost. So I think it's really, really smart. It's long-term and strategic, which I like. I like from that standpoint.
Bill, big cap space moves.
Well, it's a good move for that reason. It's also because it's an upgrade. No offense to who they had on the
all offense. Those dudes were bums. Those dudes were bums. They just got better, man. You don't have to say no offense there.
Okay. I was trying to be kind, but yes, they had problems. That offensive line still needs help. Like they should not consider their work done, and I'm sure they don't. I think they'll still be aggressive in free agency, mid-price aggressive in free agency at the offensive line position. I still think they're going to add at least probably 2 people in the draft that'll be offensive linemen as well. So you're going to see an up. They're trying to raise the level of talent in that room. They had exactly 1 player that I liked on their offensive line. Not loved, liked. And that's Akeem Adeniji. The rest of them, to use a baseball term, they were below replacement level.
Right. Mike, you're one of these dynasty guys. Where did you have these guys?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important, especially for Joe Burrow. What he had in the last 2 seasons was just trash. And as we saw in the playoffs, he was sacked, 11 times by the Titans, and then he was sacked like 9 times on the Rams in the second half. So you just know that no matter who you are, you're going to eventually get injured, and they had to do something. So this is a good first step. They'll probably do more in the draft, but yeah, they need full go on trying to protect Joe Burrow. He's not, as I mentioned, Lamar Jackson. He is mobile when he needs to be, but he's not going to be, surfing around these guys, these defenders. So I'm glad to see them finally trying to protect their investment, because I don't want to see Joe Burrow become Andrew Luck. It's not only because of Andrew Luck being a Colt, but who wants to see these great players, spend 5 years and then they're out of the NFL because stupid management. And so, I'm glad that they're doing something to actually protect their guy.
Mr. Scott, what's your thoughts on the Bengals showing up that offensive line as Mike and some of the other guys just point out? That's 20 sacks in 2 games.
Yeah. No, obviously that's a good move. I mean, that's a move that I would like to see the Vikings do to shore up their line. I mean, they've had so many problems. I mean, there's just been a revolving door in the line. So I think that's tremendous. Burrow, I think, has potential to be a very good quarterback. I think he's got a chance to take the team farther than they have been in a while. So protecting the quarterback, I think it's a good move. It's not big money, and it's definitely the type of move I would like to see the Vikings make. But they say they can make because they got it tied up in one man. So they have to kind of spread their money around. But yeah, I think I think for that team and certain teams shoring up the line for a young quarterback in particular, as as Mike said, you don't want to see him get blown out of the league in 3 or 4 years because you're not protecting him. So I think they're going about it the right way, and I do like their coach.
Yeah. Well, now let's talk about my problem children over here. The only thing that I'm really looking forward to this year is the return of Mike Tomlin.
You like any of the signings?
I like the signings, but it starts with my quarterback. And as everyone that has listened to this program knows, I thought we should have gotten rid of Big Ben 2 years ago. We'd have had somebody to step in now, at least to be that bridge that we want Mitch Trubisky to be. Now, I don't have the problems. I don't have a mobility problem with Mitch, but I don't think that Mitch is a long-term answer, nor do I see the long-term answer necessarily in the draft. But they did do some things that I like. I like the signing of Miles Jack, and it didn't cost a lot. 2 years, $16 million. We did shore up the offensive line a little bit. We got Daniels, 3 years, 26.5. Couple cornerbacks. We got Levi Wallace, 2 years. Was it $8 million?
Yep.
And then they got Mason Cole, a center. So we did make some moves. And as you said, there are going to be some other moves to be made down the line. But I thought maybe, even though this was this was really a team-friendly deal, this 2-year deal that Trubisky made.
How much did they give him? How much did they give him? Do you know?
I believe, what did we give him, Bill?
You talk about guaranteed? Because that's the only real money.
Yeah. I think, guaranteed money. What did he get?
I think it was what?
It was really cheap, I know.
Yeah, it was something like maybe 13.
Yeah, I think it was 13. It might have been 12, but
it was not at all breaking the bank.
No, it was somewhere between 10 and 13. I can't think of the exact number.
12.75.
There you go.
Oh,
I knew
okay.
almost 13. Yeah, 12.75.
Okay.
So like I said, it wasn't like it was was breaking the bank.
Nope.
But and I do think, like I said, he can be a bridge. But right now, there's not the guy out there that we can get. So, Bill, what's your thoughts on the signing of
My
Mitch
thoughts
Trubisky?
is we're going to draft a quarterback. That's my thoughts. I mean, the point of getting a guy like Mitchell Trubisky is you can now afford to get a quarterback that needs development and give that quarterback time to be developed. So if a guy like Matt Corral's available in the second, or a guy like Carson Strong's available in the second, or maybe in the third, a lot of people are freaked out about his knee situation. And now there's been all this, anonymous scout says, which is stuff I love during lying season. When the anonymous scout says there's questions about his leadership, there's questions about his work ethic, blah, blah, blah. Even questions about his football IQ. Now, I've watched probably more Carson Strong tape than everyone else here, I'm guessing. He makes a lot of adjustments, and he'd run a lot of option routes. And he's required to read a lot of things on the fly, and he makes a lot of calls at the line in that offense that they run under Coach Norvell at Nevada. And I mean, I don't know how he does in interview rooms or on whiteboards, but on a football field, he's shown that he can process information quickly and correctly more often than not. So I think a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing is basically just that stuff. And it's the kind of thing that you often hear this time of year when somebody's hoping they can, maybe convince another team to pass on a player that they really want. But, once we get past the one or two quarterbacks that might go in the first round, like Willis and Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett, yeah.
I think potentially they're in play for everyone else, which could mean Desmond Ridder, though I think Desmond Ridder he might go in the late first or very early in the second. But then there'll be a little bit of a baby run on the next group of quarterbacks later in the second and into the third. And I think, like I said, they have a chance to grab one of those guys there. And don't have to rush them out there. They have time to develop him because Trubisky's going to probably be the starter for at least 1 and possibly 2 years. The things that I can tell you about Mitchell Trubisky, once again, I studied him in his time at Carolina. He's a guy that came out, frankly, not ready. He was not ready himself. I mean, he will understand what it's like to be a guy who's not ready, right? Because he went through that. And when he was in Chicago, there were definitely times when he seemed overwhelmed by certain things, both mentally and in terms of just sort of even the understanding of what is expected of you when you're a quarterback at this level with grown people around you who have bills and problems. So he's matured, I'm going to assume, in the time that has passed since then. I think that also the system that we run is going to be a little more Mitch friendly. They were basically hoping to get Pat Mahomes, right? When he came to Chicago, and they didn't, right? They literally passed up both Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes and traded up for the honor of doing so to get Mitchell Trubisky. And like I said, the good news is that he's still fairly young. He still has a fair amount of potential. And I think he's going to have a nice rest of his career, as probably doing this for a while, doing this sort of Fitzpatrick thing where you're this team's bridge quarterback and you're that team's bridge quarterback because enough people liked him coming out. He's intrigued enough teams that I think he could do this 3 or 4 more times.
And I think strategically it's smart. Sorry, jumping right in for the Steelers. I think it screams to exactly what Bill's saying. It screams to me they're going to draft a quarterback. And they know that the right thing to do because nobody, in my opinion, including Pickett and Willis, is NFL ready.
Correct.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. From what
you're
I've
right.
seen, nobody's NFL ready. But there's this group of guys that if you give them a year, maybe 2, can grow into. Carson Strong is a guy I just like. I don't know why. I think Carson Strong is going to be. And then Trubisky's the perfect guy for this because he has been there. To Bill's point, he can literally talk to them about what it's like to be in the fire too soon. He provides you that stability there, that you're not out of the question competitive in your division because you have a gap at quarterback. That's not the case. And you can draft a guy in the second, maybe in the third round. I like Strong. I like Sam Howell. I think there are guys there that you can now groom, whoever fits your system best. But this signing, and specifically the 2 years, screams we're drafting one of these quarterbacks. Not at the top, not in the first round, because I think Malik Willis is a real project. You better have patience in your organization if you take Malik Willis. Pickett, they can walk across the hall and call Kenny Pickett, right? But I think it'll most likely be a Ritter, Howell, or probably Carson Strong, in my opinion. And I think it's a smart strategic move. It's a Pittsburgh way of doing something.
Mike, your thoughts?
Well, okay. I should clarify the contract. I was wrong. What I said was the incentives he could make. So it is actually a 2-year deal, $14.2 million, and then that $12 million in incentives. Secondly, I don't see him being more than a 1-year starter there. He's someone that, I mean, Mason Rudolph. He's had his chances. He could grow.
I'll make you put you on mute, Mike.
Dwayne Haskins. How about that?
You're just trying to get muted right now.
I know.
You want to give Mr. Scott the rest of your time, Mike? I think you could just bow out and give Mr. Scott the rest of your time, bro.
But yeah, I think they're either going to draft a quarterback this year or next year, and if you have Mitchell Trubisky this year, and then you draft as we mentioned, the quarterback that's not ready for it's just you're replacing Mitchell Trubisky with Mitchell Trubisky. So it's I see Mitchell Trubisky maybe playing sometimes this season. Sometimes he'll be benched, and then next year they'll draft a quarterback because the team will probably just be awful.
Well, I think
good,
for
good
sure.
seeing you on the Sports Crib, Mike.
Yeah.
Sorry you won't be back. Sorry you'll never be back again. Good knowing you, buddy.
Take care.
Well, I have to kind of agree. That's what I was going to say. Agree with Mike. I mean,
Thank you,
what
Mr.
about the 2 backups they have? Didn't the one play quite a bit when Ben was hurt?
Mr. Scott, who's your backup in Minnesota?
Me and you, Bill, next week. See you next week, bro.
Well, yeah, Sean Mannion. That doesn't count. Sean Mannion, that doesn't count. But didn't Ben's backup? Didn't he play? Actually, good part.
No. He didn't play. He was in the game. There's a difference. But go ahead. But go ahead.
Haskins has never really gotten a shot. I mean,
see you next week, Bill. Me and you, buddy.
But overall, I really like the Trubisky because I think that's going to help my finances when I call Mr. King to bet against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hey, you got away this year with the Bungles pick, like I said, I'm still leaning on a bet for you, Mr. Scott, because I think that Mr. Trubisky can have a better season than Kirk Cousins.
Ooh.
And that's just because the Vikings are the Vikings, even without Aaron Rodgers being in your division.
Wow.
So yeah, shots fired, and I know your Cash App, so I'm going to get you very familiar with mine. But anyway,
wow.
You can just load mine up now, instead of.
But
so first of all, it might just be you and me, Demetrius, but it might be the SPORTSKRIB owned by Anthony Scott. It might be
Right, I know.
That's
Anthony Scott's SPORTSKRIB all of a sudden is now the deal. Okay. I'll be there. Send me the link, Mr. Scott. I'm on.
The Lions? Oh, you're on. The Lions?
Mr. Scott, great having you on the show. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. Great meeting Mike and hanging out with you guys. Good time.
It was an honor, Mr. Scott. Thank you.
Give us your final thoughts, Mr. Scott, and tell us about your 5-12 Vikings this year.
Well,
but anyway, go ahead.
My thing with the Vikings is always this. I have a lot of fans here and friends that are even against me about the Vikings because my standard line with the Vikings is something always happens. Something always happens. I mean, a kicker never missed a kick all year long, has to make a chip shot kick to go to the Super Bowl, and he misses it. Drew Pearson pushes Nate Wright down in front of the ref. Ref is standing right there, doesn't move.
Totally
Something always happens. So that's my standard line with the Vikings. They go so far. Can Kirk Cousins really get us over the hump? Boy. He can do better than Mitch Trubisky. I know that. Yeah, I do.
Oh, he is not going. He's going right out the door, jumping off the cliff. Thelma and Louise.
5-12, Mr. Scott. Hey guys, Mike, come on with it, man.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Scott, it was a pleasure. My final thoughts here are the fact that I hear you guys. I hear you. I listen to you. But I'm still going to freak out until the Colts get a quarterback. So until we finally get someone that I'm going to be happy about, then my nerves are going to be through the roof. So hopefully next week when we convene, I can say the Colts have Matty Ice, and I'm very excited for the Super Bowl.
Nice.
Bill, your final thoughts, please.
Certainly. Well, first of all, this has been a real pleasure. I do hope that this will not be your last time joining us, Mr. Scott. And once again, I find out we know people in common again. So we'll have to, at some point, to delve more deeply into how many people we know in common, because it seems like there's several. But one of the things that happens during free agency, we always talk about, the money and the excitement and the who's going where and all this stuff. Amongst other things that happened, is that for a lot of these young players, it's one thing if you're Von Miller or some of these other veterans who this is not their first rodeo. A lot of these young players went through the excitement of having their dream fulfilled. They get drafted by whichever team. And young players don't often go in thinking, 3 to 5 years later, I'll be someplace else doing this again. We're not being drafted again, but going through learning where everything is, buying a house, all that stuff, right? Figure out where my kids are going to go to school, that kind of stuff. I think it is often easy to forget in our excitement and our interest in who's going where and things like that is for the younger players, so the first timers, right? The ones who've never been through this before. What a shock it can be for them, because I think many of them still believe that the team that drafts them is the team they're going to play for their entire careers. And that happens very rarely. I mean, as is pointed out, Joe Montana, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I mean, we're talking about elite level quarterbacks. Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks didn't manage to finish their careers with the team that drafted them. So it lets you know that this is indeed a business, right? And as the old line goes from 8 Men Out, when you want to talk to me about money, you always call it a game. When I want to talk to you about money, you always tell me it's a business. Yeah. And that is what happens still to this day. There's still this expectation that for the front office, it is a business, right? And when the player wants something, when the players as a collective want something, as we just talked about with baseball, it's a business again, right? And as Demetrius pointed out, there's a desperate need for a salary floor and probably some other things being built into baseball to try to close the gap between and there shouldn't be haves and have-nots. If all these teams are owned by billionaires or people who are darn close to billionaires, you should be able to sustain your franchise at least in a posture of semi-aggressive competitiveness, right? For the love of God, if the Rays can do it in that absolute hideous monstrosity where they play, that is always, with the exception of a certain handful of times a year, at most half empty, or at best half empty, and sometimes far more than half empty, and they manage to be consistently competitive, it means it can be done. And even you can do it, like I said, without breaking the bank. But like I said, my last point was getting to what goes on with these players, is that we forget sometimes that for these young men that are involved, this is an uprooting and a bit of a slap to the face to many of them who really do believe, even though they probably shouldn't, that once they have been drafted, they have a professional home, right? And this is where I'm going to do this and do that. I'm going to do this. And, and they sink down roots and they get involved in various charities and all these other things, right? And then suddenly at 25, 26, 27, you're being told, not so much. We're not tendering you, or we're tendering you, but we're tendering you at a number that's very, very friendly to a team that would like to snap you up or whatever it is. So, and obviously if you're an unrestricted free agent, you're on the market entirely. But that's my final thought, is that this is as frenzied as it may be for those that like looking at it from the outside. And it can sometimes be great for those on the inside, but for the younger players who aren't in line for giant contracts, it's, like I said, starting all over again, rebooting their lives in essence. And sometimes without that huge pile or bag or whatever we like to say, that's the stars get. That's my final thought.
Demetrius, take us home. This is a record-breaking night here tonight.
Yeah, we set a new record. I'm blaming Mr. Scott for all that nonsense. No, I'm just kidding. It was a pleasure to work with you again. I think the social consciousness is great, and having you on the Sports Crib is just as good. So it was a pleasure. I generally don't use my final thoughts to promote like products or even people, and I'm going to detract from that tonight. There's a program that premiered last Sunday on HBO. It's a late night program. It's called It's called Game Theory, right? And the host of the show is literally one of my favorite people in all of sports. I don't like the 4-letter as a network. This guy is one of the one or two exceptions. He is a smart, talented, versatile performer. His name is Bomani Jones, and he's really, really good. It's on pretty late. You might have to tape it.
And he's paid his dues.
And he has earned it. You've seen him on Highly Questionable. He's done work with SB Nation. He has a podcast called The Right Time. I will say to you that he is, in large part, the reason I launched my own podcast. Listening to his podcast, understanding that this smart, intelligent dude who could talk sports, but he could step over here and talk politics, social justice. He could transcend. I started to think about myself and think, I have a voice where I can talk to Mr. Scott and Mr. King on Monday about, police brutality or things going on in the city of Minneapolis. And then on Thursday, we could yuck it up about the Lions. I liked that I could see. And so much of what people that look like us go through is we don't recognize what we're capable of until we see representation. When we see somebody else doing it, we're like, wait a minute. And literally, Bomani Jones is the reason I sat down with my producer and said, Mike, I'm launching a podcast. And I'm going to kind of model it after this guy. It's that good. He's that good. He's a versatile performer, super talented, very smart. It's largely based on sports, but he touches other things. It's kind of got this late night talk show set, but he does stuff in the studio and stuff out on the streets. The first episode was last Sunday, and I thought it was phenomenal. And if the rest of it, he's got the backing of HBO. I've heard really good things about it. I highly recommend it. I recommend this podcast. I recommend anything Bomani, but I'm not going to act objective. I'm a big fan of the guy. I think he's really talented. And I think he's kind of an inspiration for me. 3 years ago when I decided to launch a podcast, it was a lot of it was him. So it's called Game Theory. It's on Sunday nights on HBO. If you have HBO, highly recommend it. If you can find a way to record it. I don't know if you want to be up at midnight on a Sunday. So I usually will watch it Monday evening because I recorded it Sunday. The first episode was fantastic. I expect it to continue to be really good. And to James's point, this guy deserves what he's getting. He clearly works hard, and he's really, really smart, talented guy. So I recommend it as a sports fan and just someone who's interested in things that even transcend the world of sports. I think it's really good.
Yeah, the first program was really very good.
Yeah.
I will admit that I did tape it, and I
Oh,
watched
so did I.
it.
Yeah,
yeah.
it was on 11:30 in Chicago. So yeah, I had to watch that Monday. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate he had Stephen A. Smith, even though he didn't ask him any questions about Molly, but that's another.
I know.
But
We got to dedicate a podcast to that. Some point,
yeah.
right?
All right, guys. I'll see you all next week. And hey, contrary to popular belief, Mr. Scott, we'll have you back next week. Mike, I'm not too sure about you. But
Yes, sir.
All right, guys.
Have a good
Let's
one.
have a good one, man. Talk to you next week.
Talk to you guys later.